Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. This is the fourth episode, believe it or not, and it's the last week of July 2022. We got a lot of video game stuff to talk about. I'm the host this week, Jake Baldino, but I am also joined by our good friend Ralph, aka SkillUp, as well as Lucy James, and very special guest. Unfortunately, our homie Jirard, the completionist, could not make it, but we brought out the fighting game goblin himself,
right.
More Hussein. Thanks for joining us, man.
I'm back.
We banged the floor with us. We stamped the floor. Boom, and up he comes.
Come out,
like
talk about some weird
games. It's like that scene in Pulp Fiction. You guys remember that scene? You know the one I'm talking about.
I think more of myself as the Evil Dead in the basement,
right?
Kind of like below the floorboard, just like trying to get out. Every now and then someone accidentally lets me out, and I'm like, video games.
When you said the scene from Pulp Fiction, I don't know why my brain went, Tam was in the briefcase?
That's what I thought. The golden man. He comes
that is not the scene I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. I do not think I need to elaborate further on what I'm talking about.
Bring out the podcast goblin.
Well, exactly. Bring out the podcast goblin.
I haven't seen that movie in a long time, it sounds like.
We'll tell you later.
Everybody's good though. Everybody's all refreshed. It's been a fortnight since we. Is that how I say it right? It's been a fortnight since we last.
Yeah, that's exactly how
you're hanging with three members of the Commonwealth right now, so that's how you got the lingo going. I love it.
I don't even know what I thought the Commonwealth was in Fallout. So
3 members of the Commonwealth and 3 fans of Epic Games.
Oh my god.
All right. Well, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, so we might as well just kick it off. The first thing is Ubisoft's big wild ride. Had a hell of a week. So this week in Ubisoft's earnings call, we learned that a number of Ubisoft titles have been canceled or delayed. Splinter Cell VR, canceled. Ghost Recon Frontline, canceled. I forgot what that was, but that's the Battle Royale that everybody was like, no, thank you. They also had 2 unannounced games that are also canceled. So I'm sure we'll find out what those are 4 or 5 years from now, thanks to some weird leaks or a YouTuber. And the Avatar game was delayed till spring 2023. And I'm sad. I wanted to play that. The last Avatar game was good. But
I've heard
also that. Yeah, I heard it was like a really easy 1000G as well. That's the only time I've ever heard of the.
That is what people conflate. Good and easy 1000G. Conflated into Avatar game was good. When people say Avatar game is good, they mean it's really easy to get 1000 gamer score out of the Avatar game.
Isn't it one of those ones where you get like 50G just for pressing start or something? I feel like it's one of those.
It's the same way that people are like, oh, Peter Jackson's King Kong game, really good. What they mean is you can get 1000 gamer score very quickly.
I've always found it so weird to find these guides on YouTube or whatever, these channels who are purely devoted to finding games where it's easy to get gamer score, and that's like their whole thing. And they make guides for like, get this in this time. And you're like, why would you want to do that? Like, why you buy a game and you play it for 3 hours just so you can get some points? Like, I don't get this, man.
For some people, it's fun. It's incredible. I love watching those guys because it's like they have a trip down like the well of insanity where it's like all the time, like, hey guys, grinding out Halo videos for you. Hey, grinding out Fortnite, how to get these achievements, and then it's like.
Grind out Hannah Montana.
Yeah, Peppa Pig.
The legendary one was the actual Avatar: The Last Airbender game, where you just had to start the game and basically you went into a corner and just repeatedly tapped the one button until it gave you 1000 gamer score.
What?
And I think, in the Giant Bomb community, what they did was they had one copy of the game and it started off. Someone did it. I think it was Gersman or someone on staff or Ryan Davis or something like that. Once they did it, they mailed it to the next person. So there's dozens and dozens of people in the Giant Bomb community that have got 1000 gamer score in that game using one copy of the game that has just traveled around the world.
This is the traveling copy of Avatar the game.
Is the air 1,000 times.
Also, all roads. Also, the way that we just navigated that conversation and bring it back around to a different Avatar game.
Very clever.
That's podcasting.
The list of delays does continue. The only other thing that was delayed is apparently the Assassin's Creed Rift game. This was the rumored one that you would play as Basim from Valhalla that takes place in the Middle East. I think it was rumored to take place in Iraq. which is interesting. That's delayed to spring 2023. So
I missed that.
Yeah.
Completely.
So of these games, are you guys like? I heard the Splinter Cell VR being canceled, and I personally was very upset. But Ralph, what about you?
I mean, Ghost Recon Frontline, I can't recall a game being announced that had such a universally negative backlash, like at that scale. It's kind of like, no, we absolutely fucking do not want this. Please fuck off. So yeah, I mean, like, I think obviously I feel bad for the dev team because I hear that was kind of pretty far along. I think that was actually playable. Like there was some playable beta tests, I think, closed beta tests that were going around.
I was in a preview for it.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah. And it looked.
Tell us. How did it play?
I mean, I didn't play it, but I saw them playing it in front of me. So they did the beta test. It wasn't really a beta test. It was kind of like almost an alpha, maybe even a pre-alpha. So the thing that I saw was this Ghost Recon game that looked nothing like a Ghost Recon game.
Sure.
Which is like, it had none of the fundamentals of a Ghost Recon game, which is kind of part of the course for Ubisoft games right now. They take a brand and attach it to literally anything, whether it has the DNA of the brand or not. So it didn't look like a Ghost Recon game. And it was a lot of like team-based stuff, but also like class-based things, but everyone had there was a building component to it, and people could like drop ship in weapons and items and use currency that they earned through playing the game, and getting kills to, I believe, like boost or power an economy of you spending things to fortify and that kind of stuff. So they had an idea for a dynamic for the game, which was quite different to a lot of other Battle Royale games, but not at all unique. It was just bits and pieces of other Battle Royale games that they had put together.
In a Ubisoft game? Patching together ideas? That can't be right, Cam. Come on now.
The first thing they did they were like, so we have this tower, and I was like, oh my God. And then you're like, this tower is a fortification. I was like, oh, thank God. Oh my Lord.
As you were talking there, I was just looking at the run sheet, and I was like, is Frontline somehow an anagram of Fortnite? And it almost is. If there was another T in it, we could get Fortnite from that word. By the way.
But it didn't look good. It didn't look right. They had a bunch of ideas, but no singular hook that people could get excited about. It was a bunch of ideas, kind of amalgamation mishmash, where none of it excelled in any meaningful way, or none of it held any interesting potential to get excited about. It felt like very much like designed at gunpoint to hit a trend, which is a real shame, because the people who were there kind of were like trying to sell it to us, but when they were selling to us, I could tell like, you're not into this, are you?
Yeah, of course. Which I hear, which obviously, speaking to some Ubisoft developers myself, like, a lot of them are not into the stuff that they're being asked to make, right? Because Ubisoft has this really big focus on, hey, let's chase trends and let's do spin-off titles and let's do this thing. But it's like, no one really wants Ubisoft to make X Defiant. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, let's make Call of Duty / Overwatch with Tom Clancy characters, except now it's not aligned to Tom Clancy. They've dropped that branding for some reason. It just really seems Frontline, I think, is very emblematic of just how lost Ubisoft is from a creative perspective, where they seem just so rudderless right now. And it just seems like there's been this lost 3 or 4 years. I'm sure some of it is to do with the cultural reckoning that's been going on at Ubisoft, absolutely. But simultaneously, I just think they're just their leadership. I mean, they need a new, complete changeover of leadership. They are not leading that company well. And I think it's really time for those like that old guard to move on, because this company is really stuck right now.
I'm kind of wondering, like, is it also like, is it like, when you like bands and then like you start getting older and the bands keep making music, but it's not the type of music you wanted them to make? Not every band, but some bands that happens to.
Give us a name, one band.
U2. Definitely.
Oh, that's
some would say never for U2, and I would say that's right. Fine if you have that.
Always
opinion.
Been kind of cool to hate U2, sure. But I like U2.
I like U2.
Yeah.
Oh my
Nice.
God.
So
Nice.
the one thing,
Which
at least
one of us?
reward-
You only said two of us. That you have to single out one
No.
person who you now don't like.
Don't bring
no.
division to this podcast, but Tam, okay, please. We
Oh,
brought you
division
on.
is it?
Here we go. And then we bring it back to Ubisoft, just like we brought it back to Avatar. It was well
There we
played.
go.
Yeah.
The one thing I do more with something like Frontline is one less game that kind of plays like the previous Ghost Recon games, where I just like games that are third-person shooters where you can like
Yeah.
crouch, go prone. You know, there's some precision. So like, it's a bummer that we're losing that, but it's just a mountain of iffy problems with them. Like, you know, I still have the whole list in front of me
Oh, there's
of
so
all
much
the
more.
Ubisoft problems from this week. Like the fact that, you know, there's word on the street that Skull and Bones isn't good, just like how many of us have judged from the you know, the previous trailer. The fact that they're only shipping Mario Rabbids this year, and
Hey, please, we can't forget Rainbow Six Extraction,
Extraction,
which was
I played
also
that.
You know
this
what?
year
I
that everyone is
actually
still talking about.
What? That was
Totally-
this year?
That was this year. I
it was.
totally
That was the beginning
forgot
of the
that.
year. Yeah,
Yes.
I totally forgot that.
Wow.
I think that like I'm sure we'll go through it, but like it's the most fascinating thing about Ubisoft is they are the architects of their own demise, and
Mm.
the way they did that was they bet way too hard on Assassin's Creed, like far too hard, and they reached the point where they like committed too much to Assassin's Creed, so that all too much of their resources were placed into Assassin's Creed, and then at the same time, by doing that, they basically allowed themselves to fall behind the trends. So they're always chasing the trends instead of defining the trends now. And they reached a point now where they can no longer break away from Assassin's Creed to start trying defining a new trend, because that would sink the entire business. So they're forced to kind of double down on Assassin's Creed while attempting to make things that are one step behind literally everyone else in the industry. And they're just in a real shitty place right now. The only way they can do this is like literally they need to allow Assassin's Creed to take a hit, and they're just not willing to do that right now. They're like, the only way they're bringing stuff back is take a time, money investment away from AC and put it into an older property like Splinter Cell, like in a Ghost Recon that's gonna come out. It's probably not gonna sell anywhere near as close to the Assassin's Creed game that they could have made, but it'll help them diversify a bit. But it's gonna come at a hit. I just don't think Ubisoft has it in them to make that change.
No.
Yeah.
And especially like the stuff that's happened with VR today. We're recording on Tuesday. A little look behind the curtain there, but this is the day that Meta announced that the Oculus Quest, Meta Quest, whatever the hell they're calling it, is going to be $100 more.
Yeah.
Just they're going to start selling it for $100 more. And I wonder if the Splinter Cell VR cancellation, maybe not necessarily related to that directly, but it definitely feels like no one knows what to do with VR at the moment either. It's certainly not Oculus.
Well, I wonder about that announcement. I mean, obviously, components for VR, for the Meta thing, obviously the cost of production is going up across the board. I'm sure that's one thing. I wonder if it's just they're selling so many of them, because that product is spectacularly successful, right? So they're like, hey,
the VR division is not.
No, the VR division is of Facebook is not, for sure, absolutely, right? But the device is actually very successful. And so they're just selling those left, right, and center. And I wonder if they're just like, look, we can afford to do this because people are still going to buy it. And you know what? Yeah. When I bought my Oculus Quest 2 or whatever, I was really like, wow, I can't believe this is this cheap. That's what I thought. And I never think that when I buy some tech, but it was that good at such a reasonable price point. I was genuinely surprised for what I paid for it. So I can understand this move in that context where they've got such a successful product, right? I don't know if that's true or not, but whatever. But I think with Splinter Cell, I think the reason they would have canceled this actually flows through to the reason why, exactly what Tam was speaking about, where I think there is such incumbency in the size of Ubisoft as a company these days. Their operating costs, their overhead is so massive that they're just obsessed with how they can keep it going, right? And I think that that's where you get this, like, these spin-off trends where it's like, hey, we need to make a game that we can quickly get out on the market and is going to let us sell microtransactions. And that's how you get Frontline, which no one wanted. And that's how you get Roller Champions, which no one wanted, because that's like the response to Rocket League or whatever, those sorts of like casual fun things. that I think is why we haven't got a Splinter Cell game up to this point, because they couldn't figure out how to monetize it. That's the guiding principle for all of Ubisoft's decisions right now. Can you actually monetize this thing long tail? And if the answer to that is no, then generally speaking, Ubisoft is not up for it. Rayman,
How?
sorry, yeah,
how
you
the
go on.
fuck-
You go.
How the fuck is there not a Just Dance VR?
That,
Like that is the
There is.
microtransaction
Isn't there some-
machine. No, it was announced along with Just Dance. A person claims to have played a prototype of it, but it was never
Yeah.
released.
Oh, cool.
So like
I-
Beat Saber is like the thing that people buy. Like it is
Yes.
it's a seller. Like and Oculus knows that they are throwing it in free with like the Meta
are.
Quest 2 now. And it's like,
Mm.
how is Just Dance like
If they can't
The
get their
only shit-
moneymaker off the ground, like,
yeah, like
I-
the only shit I buy in VR is dance packs for Beat Saber. That
Yeah.
Lady Gaga pack is the best thing I ever bought.
yeah,
I think the thing about that one is Just Dance exists outside of VR quite successfully because Ubisoft stuck with it as the kind of competition fell away because they were like, all right, we're done with this now. We're done with the whole dancing stuff. Ubisoft stuck with it and they became the only fish in the pool basically, and that's how they do really well with it. Just Dance is also a good game, but like they do that. They apply that kind of like, we'll wait it out and then until we can corner the market to that. And they apply that same method for Rocksmith as well. All the other peripheral games are gone, but they continued investing in Rocksmith because they knew at some point they're going to be the only game in town. And that's exactly what happened. On VR though, dance games are a dime a dozen. And like they're everywhere. Everyone is shitting them out. And are you really big enough? They're coming from behind.
Yeah.
Are they big enough? What do they have that Beat Saber doesn't have? Beat Saber is
True.
like at the top of the front of the pack, and it's also got very easy the ability to just mod in anything you want. So like you can play.
We wouldn't
anything.
know, Tam. We wouldn't know. We've
I've
never
never
done
done
that.
anything
Never.
illegal in my
No.
life, not
No.
even once.
Absolutely not.
So that's kind of like probably why they're not doing it yet. They'll just get swallowed up, which is the other thing I was going to say is like what's really fascinating about the Ubisoft conundrum is at one point, if they had timed it better, they could have made a Splinter Cell game in their lazy way, which is take the Ubisoft open world format
yeah.
and just and like create an open world where you're Sam Fisher, run to a radio tower, shimmy up the radio tower, synchronize, jump down, do some stuff like Metal Gear. The problem they did is they didn't do it soon enough. They spent so long driving that format into the ground with every other franchise like The Crew,
Yes.
Steep, and Far Cry that they poisoned that well. So now they can't even make new games. They can't bring back a Splinter Cell and say, we're making it in the way that, we make Ubisoft games.
Of course.
Because everyone will be like, do not fucking do that.
No.
So
Yeah.
they would have to come up. They would have to come up with a gameplay format that is not the one that they basically got a copy and paste for, which means a lot of time, effort, R&D, design, that kind of stuff. If they're like, the only reason we got the latest Watch Dogs from Clint Hocking, which sounds like a risky game, was because it still fit into that formula. They won't be able. That formula is poison. The only thing that can exist using that formula right now is Assassin's Creed, which is why they keep doubling down on more Assassin's Creed games. They're in such a weird spot where they've got a gun to their own head and they can only make Assassin's Creed games. And the moment they stop is when it all kind of falls apart.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because I mean, in development right now, they have. I mean, Roller Champions, which they say is still alive and well, despite Jeff.
You're like, it's not canceled. It's not canceled.
It's not canceled. I reckon that's that because just to catch everyone up, if you missed it, Roller Champions is a free-to-play roller derby style game that came out. Absolutely no one knew that it came out. No marketing behind it whatsoever. Apparently, there's quite a few issues with it as well. Jeff Grubb reported that that's going to be cancelled after season 3. And Ubisoft put out a statement saying, actually, no, we're still working on it. We promise. But it's kind of, that statement also didn't say that it's not going to be cancelled after season 3, right? It's kind of very specific language.
The statement was really weird. It was very non-committal. You can rest assured we'll keep you updated as we roll forward. We fully support it. We're extending we're extending the latest season.
Yep. So they have Roller Champions. They've got Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is stuck in development hell big time.
That game doesn't exist. That game does not exist.
Not happening, man.
Yep, I agree with you. They've got a Splinter Cell game in the works, and was not the VR one, but an actual Splinter Cell game. They've got the Division Heartland, which is essentially Battle Royale. They've got this X-Defiant team shooter game that no one wants.
Wait, that's not canceled?
X-Defiant's not cancelled. No, it's still in the works. They've got...
Wait, is that the actual name?
X-Defiant, yeah.
I thought you were making that up. I thought you were taking
it's
AOL
actually
screen
XD.
name.
It's XD. So then they've got the mobile ports for the Division and Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah.
Obviously, Just Dance is this thing in the background. So they do have a portfolio, right? But I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, which is that ultimately the sort of like major mastheads of Ubisoft right now are your Far Cry and your Assassin's Creed. Far Cry really desperately needs a reboot, obviously, and then Assassin's Creed is like they're going to do, fucking live service infinite Assassin's Creed. Everything else, I think, is like, what can we do that makes money, right? What's the thing? Mobile ports and spin-offs and this and Battle Royale and whatever, that's it.
Siege is doing fine. The
For
what
Honor?
the hell is? Yeah.
For Honor.
How did if you're listening to the audio version, I sadly waved
I was
my
like-
arms like I was
Yeah, like
waving,
waving
a
a
flag,
white
and
flag.
Jake
But
What
got
game
it.
has Ubisoft made? The thing
Honestly,
that's doing good, but like you listed off 8 games there, and
Yes.
this is how I saw it. You said 8 times Hyperscape to me. That's all I'm saying, because like every other game that isn't an Assassin's Creed game is a Hail Mary to me. Like that's how it feels. Where all of these games feel like just a shot in the dark, and they're hoping that it hits. Like all of them are like a trend that they're way behind on already.
Well, I would say Splinter Cell is the exception to that, but we have no idea what kind of game they're building. And I do think it would be I would not expect Ubisoft to be able to punch out a really fantastic contemporary stealth, like, single player stealth game. I just don't think that's what we're going to get from them. And I'm definitely bracing for disappointment on that front when that finally gets revealed.
I would love a new Splinter Cell game. I would
Sure.
adore a new Splinter Cell game.
Sure. So
with this, with the stuff they currently have on their lineup, is this going to save them? I don't really know, because I see it as essentially a long list of things that they want to get going. But like, how much stuff was like, how many new ideas were greenlit during the pandemic? That I don't really see a lot of that. So like, even the Splinter Cell thing, it just
it makes me really miss like 2012 to 2014 Ubisoft, like when you had like really weird stuff that you wouldn't see them making now, like Valiant Hearts,
sure.
Child of Light, those kind of things. You just don't see them. And Rayman Origins,
goodness.
100%. Trials, yes. And let's not even forget the Division. I mean, Division got shit on for a lot of reasons over time, but the Division was the most successful new IP launch in history at its time, and it was actually a fantastic video game, despite all its many issues, absolutely. And I covered that game for a living back then, so I know them better than anyone, right? But that was a pretty remarkable breakthrough, innovative title on many fronts. And unfortunately, that franchise has just been squandered. I mean, you compare that where that is now compared to, say, the Destiny, which had launched just a few years earlier. Chalk and cheese. Destiny is thriving despite this many criticisms, and the Division is on life support, to put it mildly. So
it's really fascinating that they seem to be averse to learning lessons. Like it is wild to me that they don't look at Rainbow Six Siege and look and identify that as one of their like biggest successes in a long time, and think about what the journey is that it went on and the ethos that they put behind it, where they took a game that was not working and like scaled it back and made something smaller and cooler, and in the long term it had an uphill struggle for a while, but in the long term it's proven itself to be like a massive success. I would love to see them take that approach with some of their other franchises. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like Ubisoft as a mega publisher is in a position to, hire and try and give people an opportunity to create other avenues of, exploration for properties and new IP and stuff like that. But I don't know if they can see beyond Assassin's Creed right now.
What's amazing is that like
sorry.
I really liked Immortals Phoenix Rising. and
Yeah.
it's the same type of formula,
that.
but it just felt like it was just made by some fun-loving people that just wanted to do something cool. And it managed to feel like an accident. Like it felt like this happy accident. They were like, "Oh yeah, we have this game too."
Totally agree. I reckon that felt, in a way, it felt so Ubisoft. It felt so Ubisoft in its design, but so not Ubisoft in its intention, right? I feel like Ubisoft games often feel like they have this cynical intention behind them. Like they're not really meant to be great video games. They're meant to be monetization platforms. But Immortal Phoenix Rising just felt like a clean ass, honest to goodness, wholesome video game, even though it was the same kind of like, hey, there's lots of map markers and go around. I think they really nailed that one. But I would also say is in our conversations, we have ignored the fact that Ubisoft are working on a Star Wars game that's being made by Massive.
Just looking that up. I was like, are they still doing that?
They are doing that. And no details on that yet, but that's a thing.
Yeah,
and obviously, and that's a big deal. And obviously Avatar, which we talked about, has just been delayed. And I don't know. So those are big deals. Absolutely. Those are big deals.
That Star Wars game is The Division reskin.
Well,
if it's like, weren't people hoping that it would be a Mandalorian type game instead of?
I don't know. Like, because I think Massive get a lot of shit, and I guess I have to admit my own bias here because, as I said, having covered The Division, I know that studio quite well. I don't know, man. I don't imagine they're just going to shit out a Division reskin. That's not my guess. I think that they really did make a pretty fantastic game with the Division 1. The Division 2, I think, was also excellent in its own way for different reasons. They really struggle with long tail delivery. They are not good when it comes to like supporting their game long term, bug fixing, all that sort of shit. But do I think they're just going to lazily shit something out? I don't think so personally. I think they're going to put some proper effort into it, but who knows, man? Like it's a long time since I was close to that studio in that way.
I agree with everything that you said there, which makes me believe if they made one Division game that was amazing and then made a second Division game that was really good, there's no way Ubisoft is going, yeah, you can make something completely different. I bet you Yves Guillemot is there with a big baseball bat and is like, you make that same game, but you make it Star Wars. I want to see an E3 trailer where the man shimmies along a speeder and closes a speeder door instead of a fucking car.
Yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be a great trailer. I'd play that shit for sure.
Well, the only other news bite this week involving Ubisoft is Assassin's Creed Japan popped up back in the news. I don't know if you guys saw this, but good old Jeff Grubb reported that the first entry in Assassin's Creed Infinite is going to be set in Japan. It's currently known as Project Red, which lends credibility to the reporting. Basically, the big question here is, after Ghost of Tsushima, is it too late for Assassin's Creed to tackle Japan? Lucy, what do you think?
I have always wanted the Assassin's Creed Japan, and I think the problem that they're going to have, at least from my point of view, is that Ghost of Tsushima did Assassin's Creed Japan, but it reined it in, which I think is something that Assassin's Creed has majorly lost. Like, if you look at how long Valhalla is, how long the expansion, like, I didn't finish it and I was really enjoying the game. I was talking to Jordan Remake, who from GameSpot, who reviewed it, and I was like, oh, I'm like 30 hours in. I think I'm, pretty much
it's past the tutorial.
Yeah, no, I think I'm making some great headwind with it. And he was like, yeah, no, you have no, I mean, genuinely, he was like, you have 50 hours left. And that's just off-putting to me because it feels like it's just bloat, and it's not, it doesn't make the game fun. It doesn't make me, I don't want to clear every map marker. And I understand that there are people out there who do. And this is just, the thing that gets me is that, like, I personally, right now, I am an adult. I don't have the luxury of all that time anymore. And that to me is going to be off-putting because Ghost of Tsushima, it was a big game. It was manageable. We talked about like getting trophies and achievements earlier. I was like, I platinumed that game because I looked at the trophy list after I completed and I was like, I can do that. I don't have to spend hundreds of hours chasing down every last thing. And that's my big fear for Assassin's Creed because they always make beautiful worlds. The combat always feels fun. I typically, like 9 times out of 10, will love the protagonist. I'll probably love the journey they'll go on, but they just have no restraint. They feel like, and especially with a fucking name like AC Infinite, we're talking about the things that Ubisoft wants, and it wants your attention. It never wants to let you go. And I don't want that anymore. I want to be free, Ubisoft, okay? I just want my freedom back.
Much like the Brotherhood, as Lucy would like to be free.
That's
of the
right.
Templar.
But the Templars in Paris, they say no.
They
Not
say
down with that.
what is up? What's the catchphrase? Everything is sick, nothing is allowed, or like,
Everything is sick.
everything is bullshit.
Everything is sick.
Everything is sick, bro. Nothing's allowed.
Nothing is true.
Nothing is true. Everything is allowed.
permitted.
Permitted. Yeah.
Permitted. Everything is sick. Don't
Here's my
worry about
elevator pitch for Assassin's Creed Japan because
Here we go.
listen, man, there's too many of these games where you're in Japan and you have a cool sword.
Sure.
Tokyo 1970.
Okay, I don't know much
that's
about
it.
that era. I'd be interested to explore Tokyo in the 1970s. I don't really know anything
I
about
would
it. In
as
fact.
well. And if it had a little bit of
Sure.
assassinating to it and like a cool backpack and a hood, that's cool. I
That-
just
isn't
still
that
want
just-
a
isn't
modern thing.
Isn't this just Yakuza? Like, aren't you really just describing Yakuza?
No,
at that
because there's
point?
no stabbing in Yakuza. You can only kill people with ashtrays in Yakuza.
And
So,
entire
right.
vehicles and motorcycles.
yeah.
No knives, but you
Oh,
can
man.
definitely throw an entire sign on someone.
Everything is
Sure.
permitted. No weapons are true. Everything is permitted. Brief technical difficulties aside there. Ralph, do you think it's too late for this Assassin's Creed Japan type of thing?
I think personally, if it were another developer, I'd be like, "No, man, I'm interested to hear their take on it." But I think as Lucy said previously, the beauty of Ghost of Tsushima was its restraint. And if there is one developer that is not capable of restraint, it is Ubisoft. So I definitely, I'm cautious about that one. I wish them all the best. I hope it's super cool. I hope they come up with great ideas and a great like concept that we never expected. And yeah, 1970s Japan, let's do it. But do I think it's going to be that? No, I don't. And so I don't know. I think they got a real uphill battle because I do think Ghost of Tsushima was a truly, truly fantastic title.
Why did they now that I'm thinking about it, why did they like relegate some of their coolest ideas to that 2D side scrolling?
What was that called? What was that?
Yeah, I
one?
forgot what it was called. And like it wasn't the worst, but I totally kind of
Assassin's
forgot about it.
Creed
Legacy, Assassin's Creed Chronicles.
Chronicles.
So they had India. What did they have? China,
India,
Russia.
China.
India was
Russia.
awesome. Russia was sick because it was like a dude with like a gun and like Soviet times in the winter. The India
That's
one
cool.
had some really cool stuff. Like 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 those should have been the ones to have been expanded into full games.
I think I agree with you, Ralph, but also I feel like they must know that this is the one that everyone has been asking for. And if they screw this one up, it's basically if they screw this one up, I feel like that's the end where people go like, oh, you really don't care about this anymore. Like you really don't care about this anymore. And it's just like, and then the people that will remain will be significant, but it will be people who are just like, I'm here, I'm treating this like a yearly thing where I just buy whatever it is and move on.
But I think it's interesting the way we talk about Valhalla, or the new AC trilogy, because I think there's people like, I don't know exactly where you guys sit on that spectrum, but I think we look at that new trilogy and think, okay, it's pretty cool, but you just have got this so much bloat and it just ruins this experience, right? But I think if you look at the review scores and I think you look at the general discussion outside of this very core gamer bubble, I think most people really, really like these new Assassin's Creed games. I think this franchise is currently in a thriving phase, and certainly Valhalla has made Ubisoft a boatload of money, well and truly more than any other Assassin's Creed game before. So I don't think that they're at risk of Assassin's Creed kind of like falling off if this one doesn't go particularly well. But I do think with that kind of like core gamer cred, like core gaming audience, if this one doesn't hit, then yeah, all of us are going to be like, oh, okay, well, that's it. You know what I mean? We're done.
Well, I think the next game, the next mainline entry is going to be a better indication of the health of Assassin's Creed than the last one. Valhalla was definitely a success, but we have to keep in mind it was also a launch title for a bunch of new consoles. So like it
Sure.
definitely got a boost from that. There wasn't a lot of other games that people were excited about. So along comes, these guys who are like, we've got a massive game that we've been really...
crucially, Xbox didn't really have anything, and they put all their marketing spend behind Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla, yeah. And they were like, during the review phases, Ubisoft was very like pushing, you should review the Xbox one. And
Yeah,
Xbox
true.
will also been like, here's the Assassin's Creed game.
That's true. That's
And
true.
so like that is a big boost. And obviously by that point they were 2 games in on leaning on this is like our Witcher kind of like reputation.
Yeah.
So that benefited a lot from it. No, that's not just discount it as a bad game. I don't think it was a bad game by any means. But I feel like it definitely got a boost out of being a launch title and being aligned with the Xbox so closely.
Yep.
The next one's going to be an interesting one. What I see here is like there is enough. They're making. I said this on our podcast, GameSpot After Dark. Ubisoft are making so many Assassin's Creed games that at this point, one of them's bound to be good, like really genuinely good. Like I feel like that's the best case scenario for us, and I think one of them's going to be a tight, smaller experience in the classical style. I said it in that podcast, but like for me, I don't think they made good on the original vision for Assassin's Creed. They did Assassin's Creed 1. They started the social stealth stuff. They created a small area that was joined by, a mostly empty overworld. And then from there, they quickly moved on to a much bigger space with Assassin's Creed 2. I feel like they need to go back to that original game and make good on that, which is like basically, in the lineage of Prince of Persia, where it was like a stealth game. And I would love to see them do that again. And that's what it looked like they were doing with Basim and the Middle East game. So I hope they did carry on with that.
But also, it's quite funny that we talked about all of the upcoming Ubisoft games and no one mentioned Prince of Persia.
Well, that also is just not a thing. That's just in development hell on its own. So, that's very rough for the India-based studios there. So,
My boy, that's who we need the most right now.
The Prince.
The good old Prince and his sands. I love that game.
Right. Me too.
Yeah.
Did you guys remember there was meant to be a Division movie starring Jake Gyllenhaal? You guys remember?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What happened to that?
Who knows, man? Who knows? No
Was
idea.
it with
He was the
Jessica
Prince of Persia.
Chastain as well?
He was. That's right.
He was the Persian prince.
He was.
Yes.
He's very Persian.
The most Persian I've seen.
He's the most like Ryan Gosling in Black Panther. Same thing. it just fits.
The next Prince of Persia movie will star Scarlett Johansson for sure.
Oh,
oh man, she's never living that down, is she?
no.
So ultimately, the prospect of a live service Assassin's Creed, I look at it just like, all right. So if one of their first things is a Japan and it's not great, then what do? Just wait for the next expansion or the next update? Like, oh, maybe they'll get me next time. I'm curious to see how that pans out, but I'm not like falling over myself. Lucy, what about you?
No, I think I was probably peak Assassin's Creed fan, around the Ezio trilogy. I really enjoyed Syndicate. I didn't care as much as a lot of other people did when it went to big open worlds, because I was like, it just wasn't interesting enough for me. So I'm at the point now where I'm like, I appreciate if you like Assassin's Creed. That's great. I hope you have a great time with it. I'm not rushing day one anymore.
Sure. The other thing I'll say is I really expect Ubisoft to get bought out in the next 12 to 18 months. I really believe that. No. I mean, I think I looked at Bethesda when they were going through all their shit, and I saw all the decisions they were making about pumping out Fallout 76, the subscription thing they served up for Fallout 76. I looked at the Wolfenstein Youngblood. I looked at the long pipeline ahead for the likes of Fallout and Elder Scrolls and Starfield, and I'm like, this looks like a company with massive cash flow issues. I bet you they are looking for a buyer right now, and sure enough, boom, Microsoft buys them. So I really, really believe that Ubisoft are going to try and find a buyer. There had already been rumors that they were like getting their house in order for that, but I think with these announcements, how bad all of this has been going for them, I would be stunned if no one swoops in and buys them in the next 12 to 18 months, because this is a pretty bad state of affairs. And I think management are not the right people to lead them out of it. And I don't think they want to just step off. I think they'd rather cash out and move on. So that's my personal prediction.
I say we pool our money together. And
let's buy them.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah.
I got $6. I got some Blu-rays I can sell.
I was gonna say we can
$1,096.
Oh, someone's earning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's it. No, that's it. That's it. That's all.
Nice.
Let's do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up, let's move on to the big topic of the hour. If a lot of you guys have seen the title or thumbnail of this video, the hot story is NFTs, baby. Minecraft this time around. So it was a fairly big week or so for NFTs, with Square Enix announcing 25th anniversary NFTs for Final Fantasy VII. I didn't even know this because I think I have the word muted at this point. But
you're missing out on so much fun by muting that word. There are so many fun dunks on Twitter for this. You are missing out on the best part of Twitter right now, to be honest with you. Dunking on
part
NFT
of Twitter
bros.
is none.
The best part of Twitter is not being on Twitter.
Hey, listen, no. Let's not talk shit about Twitter.
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
This man is here to defend Twitter's honor.
I love Twitter. I'm a lover of Twitter. I'm a known Twitter enjoyer.
No. So Tam and I were in the office today, and Tam was like, "Oh, there's this guy who just like tweets dunks at me." And I went, "Oh, what's his username?" And I went and looked it up. And in the time, as Tam was talking to me about this, he tweeted, what was it?
I think it was
a Speedwagon tweet.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Speedwagon.
Yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
Maybe you deserve it.
I'm just doing it. Maybe I deserve it. Yeah.
You're asking for it. You if you build it, they will come.
I'll dunk on you.
So with the Square Enix thing, the bigger thing was Minecraft taking an official.
You
strong
almost said Minesweeper. Don't deny it.
Minesweeper.
Minesweeper anti-NFTs.
So I guess I'll just read the full statement. Should I read it in a dumb voice? No, I shouldn't.
Yes.
You've already
I don't have a
cleared
dumb
your throat,
voice.
so I'm afraid you have to.
No, you're not supposed to clear your throat before you say something, and I do it every time.
Are you not?
Yeah, that's like a thing.
That's a thing, really? Okay.
That's like a talkie thing, a professional talker person thing. Yeah.
Oh, I
you
didn't
guys should know that. Well, I just taught you. Clearly, it's working.
Yeah.
So they said.
Let's do this now every time. Start speaking. What do you think about this, Ralph? Well, I think. Yeah.
So the official statement reads: each of these uses of NFTs and other blockchain technologies creates digital ownership based on scarcity and exclusion, which does not align with Minecraft values of creative inclusion and playing together. NFTs are not inclusive of all of our community and create a scenario of the haves and the have-nots. The speculative pricing and investment mentality around NFTs takes the focus away from playing the game and encourages profiteering, which we think is inconsistent with the long-term joy and success of our players. So for me personally, that's like the thing on the wall that you just go, you tap the sign. Like the whole statement, which you should look it up, just Google it. It is very well worded and beyond how I can explain them. And I think they did a really good job of like coming down hard. Ralph, I think we were on the same page. We kind of talked about this.
Yeah, this statement made me very moist. Very moist. It was,
oh no.
Really,
what an upsetting... The only person who is allowed to use the word moist is Mary Berry. Okay.
I apologize. Please, you just edit that out.
It's one of the funniest words. I fully endorse your use of
Jake's like, yeah, don't worry. I was going to edit that out anyway. It's fine. No, I mean, obviously this was huge, and I think it has really big implications across the world of video games, because right now we've seen most video game companies look at this and either say, yeah, we're into that totally, or they do that thing where they're like, we're not sure about this, it seems a little sketchy, maybe we'll just hold off for a little while. Here you have what is arguably the biggest game in the world alongside, say, Roblox, coming out and being like coming out and being like, no, this is fucking shit. And not just saying, and like, because but that courage to basically say, this is why it's so badly, and just really clearly spell that out. They didn't have to do that. They could have just been like, oh, it's against our terms of service, whatever. But they put an ideological framework forward for why they're making this decision that is exportable across all of video games. And I just thought that is so fucking powerful and awesome. But this is Microsoft who owns this. And it's interesting because Microsoft, they're a little bit open to this. They're not like all in on blockchain and NFT games, but they've left plenty of room for it. And so I wonder how this statement is going to come back to bite them in the ass if and when Microsoft chooses to start playing in that space a little more.
Well, you see, they're playing both sides, so they
very
always
clever.
win.
That's right. That's
but
it.
I'm just really glad to see the statement as well. It was just like such a definitive, no fucking thanks to NFTs in game. And yeah, like it's nice to be able to see, because I'm just thinking about that fucking blockchain game that was all over E3 last year. Like, it had its own little press conference, and it's like, when you have a game that is explicitly marketed towards kids, and you are, Roblox doesn't take a stand. Most games marketed towards kids don't make a stand and let their audience be exploited and into paying more money. And so for Minecraft to set this precedent is very good and very welcomed.
Yeah.
Microsoft does give itself a kind of, I mean, in a scenario where this happens, if I'm Microsoft, I just simply say, well, we don't, control the way our individual studios operate. That's always been our policy. So as a company, we can separate ourselves, etc., etc. I mean, that is how they would approach it. But like, I also, Square Enix investing in it continually, I just don't understand how it's a level of like ignoring the context around NFTs and blockchain stuff. Like, blockchain, I guess, is doing fine, but NFTs it's pretty well documented now that sales of it have just like fallen off a cliff.
Sure.
In fact, I say that I'm reading a piece on Bloomberg, which is NFTs have fallen off a cliff as sales prices plummet in recent weeks. Like, and the top selling marketplace, OpenSea, sales volume is down by 75% since May. So it really, the fact that people are still talking about this, especially companies, while also clearly being aware of the fact that it has fallen off a cliff, is just pure like ding dongs on these shareholder boards don't know anything going on. If we say the word NFT, people get excited and it helps us. That's where we're at with NFTs right now. And it's mind-boggling.
To that point, Stephen Tillo or Toledo? I always forget. Tillo. He found a report recently, amplified it, that said that 50% of the investment in new video games for the last little while has been for NFT and blockchain games, in the vicinity of, I think, $2.2 billion has been put into NFT and blockchain games over the last year. So that is how committed the video game industry is, or that's not true. That's how committed the investor class is in getting into this space and trying to make a dime on something that every single person in the video game space is against. And this is like what's so crazy about this. I've never once seen the video game community so unified against anything like on this level. Even the loot box war of 2018. You guys remember that one with Star Wars Battlefront and whatever? That was an epochal moment in video games.
I was on the front line of that war.
Hell yeah. Absolutely, right? And even then, I do not remember the same level of that uniformity where it's like, no, fuck the fuck off. We do not want this on any level. And still companies are pressing forward, you know?
It's such a weird thing too. It's like a time where like gatekeeping becomes okay, because it's like someone like some big brain celebrity will come out and be like, I've played Call of Duty, I understand this, and then they tweet like, but what if your gun that you got in Call of Duty could be in another game? And everyone's like, you've never played a handful of games, have you? Like, that's a terrible idea.
It's always okay to bully NFT people. It's fine. Like, it's totally 100% fine, you know?
Yeah, I just am not into them in games. And with the whole investment into like a major chunk of investment of games going towards games like this, I worry about like what we haven't seen yet. Like, there's more to come. Like, we've only just begun. Because some of these projects won't immediately surface, and the games that we have seen that are like NFT or blockchain focused are like the worst things I've ever seen. Like the most like no thank you type games. One might even say no fucking thanks type games.
No, the one that was at E3 last year was basically like a reskin of Roblox, but you leveled up your character and it would become an NFT or something.
I think we just like put in the post show for that, wherever that was, we just ripped the piss out of it.
Because we didn't know. That was when we were running the pre and post show on GameSpot, and like we had no idea what that showcase was or what that game was. And it was basically a Krusty the Clown. What the hell was that? Like, at the end of it was just like.
Can I just say you do a really good Krusty, by the was really nice.
I have a lot of practice doing the what the hell was that. But I remember, we just tore it to shreds. But from a concerned angle,
Yeah,
just
because it was
weird.
aimed at kids. It was a fully like, hey, the kids, this is for you. Here's NFTs. I think like if anyone in the core gaming space is probably learned a valuable lesson from Star Wars Battlefront, which is if you're gonna build your game to be a bullshit factory, you better also build a way to rip that stuff out when it does go wrong. So I think like the way they like tore that out of Battlefront and kind of not saved it, but like were able to kind of help people kind of come to terms with what it is. I think like most of these NFT games, if there are like traditional game developers working on it, you best believe they're probably also thinking about their exit strategies for when this stuff, because by the time these games come out, who knows where NFTs are going to be? They might be like just completely forgotten. So they need to think about that.
I really, one thing I think about as well whenever I hear these NFT projects, and I think about the war for talent that's going on in the world of video games, right? And that is that it's so hard to get talented developers anywhere. You hear studios, they're announcing projects early because they're so desperate to try and get staff on board. And then I think about the fact that I'm like, who the fuck is making these NFT games then? Like, what quality of developer are you getting behind these projects? Because like, if you really love video games and you really want to make them, like if that's your calling, there's no fucking way you are going to want to work on an NFT game. Like that's just not it, right? So I don't mean to like disrespect those people that are making these games as individuals, because everyone's trying to get by, everyone's trying to earn a paycheck. I respect that, fair enough. But I'm just thinking about like, what quality of talent are they attracting to this sort of stuff? Because nobody that I met who loves video games wants to make this shit, you know? So like, who's doing it? And I wonder if that's to do like why we're seeing so many of these truly awful NFT games being stood up, because like, that's all they got. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think about that.
From the quality, it looks like people who, like you said, aren't invested in making a or adhering to a creative vision. It's wet work stuff where you go to a studio that has programmers and you tell them, I want my game to do this, this, and this. And they make exactly that thing word for word as NFT Man has said it, and it comes out looking like garbage. And that's exactly who's making it. Like, you're not getting video game passionate designers, developers, artists that are super into it coming together, building up a new studio and being like, we're going to make an NFT game. No, they're like, go and do something else.
Yeah. Well, it's funny actually. The when this Minecraft announcement happened, there's this company called NFT Worlds, and they are basically making NFT related content on top of Minecraft. And so they were the ones that were most negatively affected about this, because they've made around, I hear estimates of around $75 to $100 million selling these NFTs for Minecraft. Yeah. And if you can, to the NFT community, the people who are keen on this stuff, right? And it was, because my understanding, don't quote me on this, but my understanding it was the most successful NFT offshoot for Minecraft, right? And so you'd have private servers where they were selling NFT stuff, and the NFTs would, you can do so much with private Minecraft servers. And so it actually makes a lot of sense. And that is what prompted Minecraft or Mojang to release this statement, because they saw all of this activity springing up and they saw real money going on around it, right? And so this NFT Worlds company has responded saying, oh, this is terrible because it's them controlling the ecosystem and they want to monetize everything that they make versus, giving the freedom to creators to build monetized ecosystems. And it's like, well, I can see that from one perspective, but also I don't really think you have the best of intentions in all this. Let's be real. Anyway, what they've said is they're going to make their own Minecraft, right? They're like, this isn't the Infinity Worlds. We're going to make our own Minecraft with blackjack and hookers. And everyone was like, good luck with that, bro. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to make it competitive to Minecraft and build it on NFTs? Sure, man. That's good luck. Good luck.
It's just, because Minecraft became Minecraft overnight or in a year. That's all it took, a year's worth of work.
Can compete with that. No worries.
Easy.
So they're
it's a shame. I feel like the waters get muddied in terms of like the real conversations we've been having now about like digital ownership and stuff. And like gamers are getting very concerned of those things. But to flock to something like this, like I'm concerned if more people will flock to something like this with those concerns, but it's so like a separate thing, because it's all just about like, a lot of it, at least from what I know, the limited is like profiteering, and it's more exactly what their statement said. It's more of a haves and have-nots thing, and it's like members only elements that I don't think really belong.
Yeah.
The other thing too that I wanted to pose is that like, are we winning? Because it feels like we're pushing back against these things, these NFTs and stuff, but new stuff keeps coming.
Yeah.
Tam, what do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to say whether we're winning or not. I think that there is a groundswell of negative sentiment that is causing most companies to second guess. But ultimately, the thing as gamers that we need to keep in mind is we can say as much as we want. Our voices don't hold as much weight as shareholder voices, and the kind of the mainstream awareness around blockchain and NFTs. I think what we've got currently is anytime that a major video game development company is in a situation where they need to decide to NFT or not to NFT, they are definitely thinking real hard, because they know the moment they say anything, they're going to get clapped real hard by the community. And I think the longer we keep that up, the more pressure it is on there. And if we choose to not engage with this stuff in a very vocal and noticeable way, eventually we'll reach the point where we can ride it out. The problem with NFTs are, regardless of where you put the NFTs, the NFT people will come to it. They are constantly, they are sharks in
and
water,
they're
just
bots.
looking. Yeah, and they're bots. Yeah, they're sharks in water. Just they'll go from one drop of blood to the next. And NFTs are that. Like, you could go to, I don't know, the solitaire community right now and play, and if you introduce NFTs, all the NFT bros will go there, because they need this to fuel their kind of economy. They need it to be kind of like self-congratulatory, and that's how they keep it going. They spread by just going where it is to artificially act like, oh, this is doing really well, look how these big places are. They force it into existence. So it's kind of just like, sure, but yes, but no. We're not.
On that point, I think a really good example is this Off the Grid. Did you guys see this? It's from that Neil Blomkamp, the guy who did District 9. He's making a game called Off the Grid. Okay.
Yes.
And they announced it. And what they didn't announce when they revealed it is that it's actually an NFT game, right? They kind of kept that really under wraps. And then there was this YouTuber by the name of Big Fry TV, did some really great video just unpacking all of that and being like, well, yeah, this is clearly an NFT game. And it's so interesting to go to the reveal trailer of that game, because the reveal trailer has 8 million views and it has 1,200 comments, which basically means that...
Wild.
Correct. So what anyone who's not really close to YouTube means, that's one of two things. One, that they use this as an ad and they paid for this to roll, right? And so it just gets served as an ad to people watching YouTube. Or two, there's a lot of bots behind it, okay? And then you go into the comments section and read the comments. And it's like, this animation look amazing. Looking forward to it. This is such a great teaser, smiling face. Looking forward to the success of this project. By the way, anytime you hear the word project in a reply on a comment section or thing, it's a bot. That's a thing, right?
You have just asked for the comments on this video to all be, I love this project.
For real. That's right. Oh, that's true. This is a great project. Looking forward to whatever. But yeah, if you just go through these comments, it's all bots, man. And I challenge anyone to disagree with that. But that's what's happening. Like, it's about that presentation of success. Like you said, they want to pump this up and be like, look how big all this is. And they throw these metrics around. This community, the Twitter handle for this game literally tweeted out, so excited, thank you for 8 million views on our reveal trailer. It's like, well, how did you get those? You know what I mean? Like, is that a congratulatory pat on the back for something that you yourself have kind of made happen in that way? I don't know, you know? But yeah, I think a lot of it is that presentation of success without really having much to celebrate, I think, as you said, Tam.
I think the important thing to take away is just don't let up. As Ralph said earlier, bully every NFT bro you find. Like, mercilessly do it.
Tam, you said our voices aren't important, but our wallets very much are.
Our voices are important. They just don't hold as much weight as a shareholder rolling up to a Square Enix person and being like, I want Aerith to be an NFT right now. Like, they got
don't give them ideas.
I mean, it's already happening.
I mean, it's already happened, but there's Remake Part 2 coming.
Once the Aerith NFT comes out, we all start going, we are not going to buy a Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 if you carry on like this. That's when they start going, oh shit, this is a problem.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. How fungible is Aerith though? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
I will
fungible are
fudge
those
her, let
tokens?
me tell you.
Dude, oh.
She is my favorite Twitter genre is the NFT people who think they've discovered incredible uses for the technology when really they
yeah.
just felt like I read this one thread that was like, what if you went to a hotel and the hotel gave you NFT tokens for staying there and you could redeem those tokens for discounts on future visits? And everyone's like, bitch, you just described a loyalty program. We've been doing it for 60 years, you know? That's my
Gary
favorite.
V explaining that your plane ticket will eventually become a collectible NFT because you went somewhere and someone will buy it off of you. That broke my brain.
Who linked the one that was like, if you destroy a diamond? Who linked that to us? Was that someone recently?
Man.
If you destroy a diamond, but you have an NFT certificate for the diamond, that's okay. You've lost nothing because you still have the NFT for the diamond or something. It's like,
I don't know about you, but after I get on a flight, one of the few like cathartic moments of the whole flight experience is like angrily destroying the ticket, like throwing it away. If you're the kind of person who keeps it and assigns value to an airplane ticket after you've done the flight, you are a demon. You need to go to hell.
I just wish I believed in anything like these folks believe in this.
NFTs.
I want to find some of that juice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so dangerous, because I think ultimately most of these people, they don't care about games. Like they just see this as like, oh, I can make some money. And I think that's what's so dangerous about this, because like incentives matter, right? And you've got this incredible incentive before people where they believe that they can get rich if they really pump this stuff.
Yeah.
And so you get this army of people, not just the developers and not just the community, but like just people, investors, speculators, and it becomes such, and they're amplified by their bots and whatever. So it's just this massive cacophony of sound, this wall of sound that is being thrown at you around this stuff. And it's, yeah, as I said, it's a dangerous force to reckon with.
Mm-hmm. At least, at the very least, shout out to Minecraft.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and again, a great statement. Go look it up. It's definitely well said, well articulated, and I think we're all in agreement. We'd like to see other publishers make that type of statement, or game developers, at least individually. Moving on, let's talk about Knights of the Old Republic. This actually broke right before we started recording this. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg is reporting that the Knights of the Old Republic remake is facing some issues. They apparently just laid off 2 key people on the development team and have kind of I don't have the word right in front of me, but seemingly delayed indefinitely the project, kind of halted it, if you will. And this apparently caught a lot of the team by surprise. They didn't see that coming. And now they're saying at the very least, maybe we'll see the game by 2025. This is a wild one, just because it seemed huge for it's KOTOR. It's such a hard one to remake, and it was being remade by a smaller team, a team that has Aspyr or Aspyr, ASPYR, who has experience.
I always said Aspyr.
They've ported the KOTOR games. They've ported a bunch of games. They've worked with a lot of Star Wars properties. So, but I don't know. It seemed like a lot, and that's a hard one to remake, especially with so many different cooks in the oven, cooks in the kitchen, if you will.
What is cooks doing in an oven?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
In the
I don't
oven.
know.
That
I
is
saw that.
really-
I don't.
I saw Ratatouille. What Ratatouille did you watch?
We're learning a lot about
Remy.
Jake today.
Remy just like clawing at the oven door.
Too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of like Disney and different canons, and everyone really putting Knights of the Old Republic on such a pedestal. And I was worried about it from the beginning. Now, at the very least, I see, I don't want to go too far into it. I want to know what you guys think. Ralph, what do you think about this?
Okay, so super bummed about this, obviously. The details, as I read through them, were increasingly grim. When you read the headline, paused indefinitely makes you feel like, maybe there's hope. But then you read that the studio is actually looking for other projects right now. So they're like gone to market to see what else we can make instead. And it's firing senior leadership and whatever else. So it does look like, hey, this isn't going to happen. I don't know, man. This is a studio that I believe had really only done ports before this. They were responsible for bringing ports to mobile and reviving a few other things. Like they'd actually ported KOTOR to mobile platforms in the past. So I wonder whether or not this was the right choice for a studio to lead this project. I know they were getting support from Saber Interactive as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously really sad about this. This would have been cool. I'm sad for the people involved because obviously they would have worked really hard, and it would have been a tremendous honor to have, worked on a game like this and done it right. So that's a real bummer for them. But yeah, it just seems like one of those sad situations. And if I was a betting man, it does sound like this project's entirely dead.
Well, if people want some hope, like this wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened. Like they were getting support from Saber Interactive. Saber Interactive is a studio that has perhaps a little more chops in developing their own, full scale projects. There is a decent case to be made for the various stakeholders going, okay, Aspire's out, Saber, you're taking over wholesale. It's similar to what happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was originally being done by Bandai Namco, if we remember correctly. And and they were like, at some point, Square Enix rolled up and were like, you guys are dropping the ball. We're taking this internal, and they made an amazing game out of it. So I wouldn't like completely discount it. And as far as I know, there is some rumblings that Saber could take over the project entirely. I feel like Disney and Lucas would probably lean towards that because one, the game's been announced. Two, it developed a lot of buzz, so they're probably sitting there thinking this has got quite a bit of momentum to it. We should probably just try and see it through as opposed to kill it off right now. It feels like too big to just make disappear right now. So I would bet that Saber gets the kind of development duties, and they have to staff up and kind of like take over from there.
And I think Embracer Group, because they are the publishers, I think they would be willing, because I think they've been very busy gobbling things up, and I think they would very much like to be like, we have a Star War, now they
could give it to like Crystal Dynamics, you know what I mean, for example, or Eidos, or they've got all these studios they bought Gearbox could make the KOTOR remake. Hey, Randy Pitchford can do that. Let's make it happen, And
if you want to see that project disappear, Randy Pitchford is the man to make it disappear. That man's a magician.
Oh, man.
It's Sunday and he's a millionaire. He's got better things to do. No, but also it's like the thing that when you're talking about canceling it outright or giving it to another studio, I'm looking through the Bloomberg article now, and it's like they've been working on it for 3 years. So if you're talking about sunk cost, they're going to just have to make that decision whether or not to scrap 3 years worth of work or try and salvage as much as they can and give it to a different team. And I hope it's the latter. I hope, the folks at Aspire are doing okay. Because also, if you're talking about like really horrible things to read in that article, they made a demo to show to production partners, and they were really excited about it and thought they were on track. And then the next week, the design director and art director got shit canned.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
And the project was paused indefinitely, and now they're looking for other projects to make. So I mean, that would be the most. I couldn't imagine a gut punch of that level. Like, that would have been super tough. So
I would love to see that vertical slice and what resulted in that. It's like, these aren't Star Wars characters. You make these are Avatar characters. How have you done this?
How did you get this so wrong? Doesn't Disney own Avatar? I don't know.
Like I said at the start, like I'm kind of all over the place because on the one hand, I'm like, that's such a wild game to remake. I don't even know if like what that would be like. But the story it told, I think, is like pretty big. Like speaking as I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, but like speaking as a Star Wars person, like the story's a big deal. And especially with how the new canon is and everything, it could be even more of a big deal, especially with modern presentation. They can tell a really compelling thing. I think even with the big twist being known now, like it being like totally in the zeitgeist, there's still so much around it that can still really compel like a new younger Star Wars audience.
The flip side of the positive outlook that we talked about earlier is Lucas probably could and Disney could look at their kind of portfolio and just think, we have so many Star Wars games in production right now, we can kill off this one, no issue.
Kill the weird one.
Yeah, kill the one that's like really being a pain in our ass.
Yeah.
Also,
no,
it's a
you
very
say
high
weird
risk
one.
project. Sorry, go on, Luce.
I was gonna say, you say weird one. We don't know what Quantic Dream are doing yet.
That is true. Apparently they don't know either, because the word of that was that like they have a cool demo, a cool trailer, but the game itself, not so sure. You know, well they made that trailer apparently to hire for talent, and the game is probably not going to ship till like 2027 or something. So, that's bad times. What other Star Wars games? Because there's one from Massive. What other ones are coming at the moment?
Fallen Order.
Hennig's?
Fallen Order, of course.
Yeah,
Amy Hennig's
Hennig's
one. Yep. That's 3. There's a Star Wars Hunters game, which is being released like next week.
No, it's next year. It got delayed, didn't it?
Sorry. No, it was delayed to next. It has been delayed, but not to next year. I thought it was just like a few months, maybe something like that.
Star Wars, like I feel terrible being a nerd on the internet because Star Wars really doesn't permeate for me anymore. I'm sorry, Jake.
Interesting.
No, it's fine.
I'm just like, yeah.
I haven't watched Obi-Wan yet. That's my level of connection. I'm stepping off from. Is Obi-Wan? Is it worth watching? Should I watch Obi-Wan? Oh, here we go. That's a lot of silence. That's all.
I don't put my I have a weird. I've retired from putting my Star Wars opinions on the internet.
Right.
I keep it to my friends and family.
I was
gonna say,
go on
here for it.
Tam.
I think it was boring.
Okay,
it is another. Every Star Wars TV show is an escort mission right now. Like everything is an escort mission. We're gonna take a character, make a tiny version of them, and then you're gonna escort them. In the Mandalorian, it's fucking Yoda. In this, it's a tiny Leia, and you just have to take him.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I didn't
Okay,
know that.
Yeah, that's tiny Chewbacca. I was gonna try.
I said bring back my prediction was next series Qui-Gon Jinn, tiny Chewbacca. Easy clap. But like
Tiny Jar Jar. When's Tiny Jar Jar?
Where's Tiny Jar Jar? The show Obi-Wan has its moments, but ultimately I don't understand massive parts of it. Where there's bits where like Vader should absolutely be able to just kill everything in the room. Like there's bits where he's like standing in front of Obi-Wan and there's just like a bit of fire, and he's like, "Oh no, how will I?" It's like you basically were in a volcano at one point. Like you'll be fine if you walk through this.
If you were in a volcano, you would be afraid of fire too.
That's true. Like
a man's wearing an entire suit to protect him from literally everything.
It's an allegory for Frankenstein. Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein's monster was afraid of fire. It's deep. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
The Hound from
poetry, right?
From Game of Thrones.
Jake's just trying desperately not to say anything, but yeah, get that one out.
I know there's some people that really love it though. I just have like a fatigue with Star Wars. I also watched a little bit of. Was it Boba Fett? And I was like, I don't understand how this is a thing.
I liked. Oh, actually, no, I didn't watch any Boba Fett. You're right. I skipped Boba Fett as well. Yeah, you're right. I actually really like the Mandalorian, though. I really like.
Mandalorian's great.
Too,
basic.
I like
very...
the finale of it. It was great.
I think that's the best show that they've made so far. It's so much fun.
I'm looking forward. Agree.
I hope they do some good stuff with the Ahsoka stuff and etc. But
guys, we got some video games to talk about.
Damn, because I was just about to pivot to Marvel and be like, "You guys excited for Phase 25 of the MCU?"
No.
You guys,
we need another podcast. We need the sequel podcast for that.
Yeah.
Video games. So major game releases at the time you guys are listening or watching this podcast. We have Escape Academy. We have As Dusk Falls. We have Stray, the cat game. Forza Hot Wheels. And Live Alive.
According to because I know this because I voiced our review and I was like, I don't know which one, so I watched the Nintendo Direct again, and they said Live Alive.
Oh, okay. All right, that's it.
Live Alive indeed. So the biggest one I think worth highlighting first is Stray, which seems like most of us have experience with. Lucy, you want to kick this one off? Stray, ultimately, where do you fall? How like do you think this is something you're going to be talking about by the end of the year?
Firstly, where's the cat, by the way? Is it going to be in shot for this or not? Because I feel
cat.
like
bring us the loud. I want to see the loud cat.
I don't know where she is. Peanut. Oh, sweet pea.
She's just sat in the dark,
sweet.
staring
Yeah,
at
I
me.
was like,
Oh, you've
that-
been with other cats this week, huh?
Just
All right, you want to talk
brooding.
about your other cat now? Okay, it's fine.
that. I thought she's either doing nothing or she's like throwing up and shit.
Throwing up.
No, I think she doesn't normally do that, except I went out on Friday night and I woke up at like, you know, when you have a drink and you're dehydrated and you wake up in the middle of the night, and I woke up and she'd smeared shit on my bedspread, and I was like,
Oh no!
She Godfather horsed you. That's
yeah,
terrible.
she did. And I woke up and she was right next to me, and I was like, what have you done? Why have you betrayed me? But she'll probably bounce around and be here in a bit. But this is actually the only video game that my cat has ever shown any sort of interest in, which is quite something, given, you know, the amount of games that I play here at my desk and at my TV. It's the thing I think I like about it the most, and I feel like I said similar verbiage about Plague Tale, is that it knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't strive to do too much, but what it does do, it just does really well, which is you are a cat, and you have a button to meow, and you have a button to push stuff off a ledge and be a menace, a button to rub on people's legs. And I really enjoy this setting. I really enjoy, you know, you're a cat, you're with your cat friends, and you fall into, you have your aggro moment from Shadow of the Colossus. You fall into a big
Yeah.
pit, which is kind of this blocked off city underground, and there are a bunch of robots, and some of them want to get outside, and some of them really much do not want to get outside. They want to stay in their slum. And you as a cat with a pal called B12, a little robot, and that acts as kind of like the translator for you in how to translate the world. And then you just do nice little puzzles that are just difficult enough. You know, it's not something that I'm going to be looking up a wiki or anything to follow through, but it's like it's a game that I can just play at a perfectly comfortable pace, and I really like it.
For sure.
I really like that the robots all dress way cooler than me. Every single robot in that game is like sick as
cool.
hell,
tripped
and
out.
really cool, and like
Totally
very
agree.
hype.
Yeah. But I also love that they have, like, even though they don't really remember humans, they unintentionally are very humanoid and have little things about them. You know, like, why would a robot necessarily care that paint was spilled outside of its shop? Why does a robot even have a shop? You know, and so it's a very clever way, even like just from a developmental thing of like not having to model actual faces, but still have some kind of character that you can relate to as a player, which I think is very smart.
There's one eating ramen in a ramen shop, and if like you zoom in, it's just like a bowl full of wires. And if you talk to him, he's like, "I don't even know why I'm doing this."
Yeah.
Smart
I
little
love
things
that.
like that are really good. The game has a lot of like good references, good little questions about like humanity and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And it's just the world, like, I just wanted to like live in these little city areas, that like these little hub areas that they give you. I actually found myself, Ralph, I don't know if you did this, because I know we finished it in a similar time frame. Did you find yourself getting to one of the newer hub areas and like immediately running around and exploring and collecting everything, and then furthering the mission and going, "Oh, I got that. Oh, I did that. Oh, I did that"? Because that happened to me a lot.
A little bit. I mean, there was definitely, for example, there was one we had to get like the laundry detergent. I don't know if you guys remember this bit.
Yeah,
but
I
definitely
already did it.
Yeah, I'd actually already done that, and I was like, okay, that's cool. But on the whole, I don't know. I think I was just, when I arrived at a new area, when I learned the structure of the game, when I learned that it was like, okay, there are these hub areas where I chat with people, but then there's these connective areas that I, where I explore or whatever, or move from A to B. When I got that, I was like, cool, I'm in a new area. This is exciting. This is fun. And I just walked around really, and I just took it all in. That was one of my favorite parts of the whole game. Just like looking at it. And I know that sounds really lame, like as in, I wish I had better words to use to describe that, but just a really, really nice game to walk around in and just look at. And I love when you're able to find those sorts of things. And also being the cat, like the perspective that you would have when you were doing that, like this world looks kind of very big around you, but not so big as to be cartoonish or fake. And the movement of the cat, the speed at which he sort of walks when you're just walking without pressing the right trigger, it's such a nice, pleasant, exploratory speed, you know?
Yeah, it is.
So it
Good
was
point.
just, I really loved that. And the soundtrack was like, oh man. And I was chatting with my friend Gav. He has a YouTube channel, makes Miracle of Sound. I don't know if you guys know his stuff.
Oh,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I love the soundtrack. It's so good. He's like, yeah, it's so machine-like, but also so like human in a way. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. If you go back and listen to that soundtrack, it does sound like an AI or a machine created these tracks because they have this kind of like beeping melodies, and it's just, he really nailed that with that criticism, with that observation. And that is one of my favorite soundtracks of the year. I mean, I'm still waiting for it to hit Spotify or whatever. I don't think it has, but just so distinctive and fantastic. And I didn't even realize how much it spoke to the underlying themes of the game and the people who live in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to like, while I have the platform, I wanted to clarify, like I dubbed the game like lo-fi beats the game. And I meant that in like the relaxed, chill play vibe. Not at all the music. The music is its own thing. And it's very cool. Especially like a couple songs give me like Big Shell, Metal Gear Solid 2 vibes, like some good jams there. Very much appreciate that. But I just found myself a little bit wanting more at the end. Not necessarily because of the short length. I love short games. If anything, like I'm a prime candidate for them sometimes. But I'm curious to see if you guys like, I by the end, I was like, oh, okay, this is how it's wrapping up.
Yeah.
All right. And it did like one thing to like tug at the heartstrings. And I was like, oh, you're doing this? This is a little sudden. Okay. And then it ended, and like, it didn't feel, I don't want to feel like it felt unearned. It just felt like it could have affected me a little more if it had a little bit more room or a little extra something to it that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe I'm just a Debbie Downer.
Yeah. Tam, what did you, because you haven't spoken about it yet, Tam, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool. I think fundamentally it is a novelty. Like the core conceit of it is super novel. And they don't overreach it, but they do a lot of really cool things to give that novelty some depth, which I think is really, really cool. But I think I'm kind of playing it at a slow pace, which is it kind of like lulled me into that pace. I'm not trying to power through it. I'm just doing a little bit here and there, and it's all good. But I've been enjoying what I played so far. Like Lucy said, it's the only game that my cat has been ever interested in. So I'm kind of like not making a lot of progress because inevitably she will show up and start looking at the screen, and I'm like, okay, I'm now playing with the cat instead of as the cat. So that's been like really fascinating, but I do like it a lot. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Yeah.
Do you think, similar to Jake's point, do you think, is it on track to be something that you would really love, or is there something missing for you in that equation?
I don't know if I'd really love it. Like, it's not a game that I think that I'm gonna spend a lot of time thinking about. But I'm enjoying it while I'm playing it. I feel like it's one of those like AA games that we've been missing for a really long time. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of those games that pops up in a few Game of the Year lists as in the top 10. But outside of this year, I don't expect it to be something that people are constantly talking about. I think the developer is perhaps going to be a developer that one day, once they announce the next game, people are going to be like, oh, the Stray team, cool. I'm going to definitely pay attention to that. I feel like the people that made it are going to benefit more long-term than the permanence that Stray itself as a game will have.
Yeah,
it's actually now the highest rated game on Steam for 2022.
Yay!
That's how much it's, but it just actually edged out God of War just this week, and that's according to Steam 250, which is a website that does like a forced ranking based on a weighted calculation. But yeah, it is by that calculation the highest rated game of the year on PC 2022.
It's an impressive first outing for the developers, definitely. Yeah, Blue 12
image of the. There's a Naruto image of Itachi holding Naruto against the Sasuke against the wall. People have replaced Itachi's head with the cat, and then the Sasuke's head with, I think Millennia. It's like Ellie or something like that from Last of Us.
Oh right, I've seen one with with Millennia from Elden Ring, and
it's like the 96 versus whatever.
The distracted girlfriend meme, but it's just everyone looking at a cat.
That's a cat,
yeah. I feel like it's interesting about that question because when I was playing it, I really was thinking, am I going to strongly recommend this or recommend it? And I was so down to the wire on that I legitimately recorded 2 voice tracks. And I was with my editor, I was like going back and forward. I'm like, which one is it? Because it was a real line ball call, but there was just like something missing from it that really made me love it, you know. And I think about something like Narita Boy, which I don't know if any of you guys played Narita Boy. Probably not.
Oh,
Okay.
a while ago.
Yeah, that was it was like early last year. For some reason, that just really clicked with me. Was it the deepest 2D platformer? Absolutely not. But just something really like spoke to me about that game. It's joy, its soundtrack, its sort of references, it's like Shinto thing that it was weaving into it. It worked so well and I loved it so much. I was like, yeah, this is a strong recommend for me. And I think on every metric almost, Stray is a better video game, but it just didn't speak to me and it didn't really make me love it in quite that way. And that's nothing to do with the fact that I don't like cats, by the way. Like, because I don't like cats. I know, right? Everyone's like, well, you're obviously
sounds like something a cat hater would say.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, there was just that little thing, but it was just fine, by the way. It's okay that we don't have to adore every single game that we play. I'm fine with that. But I was thinking, like, as an intellectual exercise, like, what is this missing to make me really love it? And I wasn't able to really come up with an answer. I really wasn't. I don't know why. It's weird. It's just those X factors, you know?
Yeah, I think it's for me, like the thing that I'm missing slightly is like it kind of relates to what Jake was also saying. Like, I want to feel more invested in the story itself. And I feel like the way they do that is by making you more invested in the cat. And I think like the traditional way to do that is like, you upgrade the cat or you give it some sort of RPG system, which it makes perfect sense that they didn't do that. Yeah. The other way you do it is like you create more of an intricate narrative around the cat, which is kind of like when you start doing that, you kind of start leaning into, or you start wandering into territory, which is like, all right, this is becoming a bit absurdist now, if you know what I mean. Like this cat is suddenly battling evil cats or whatever that, like, that whatever it might be, like Lion Kinging it, that kind of stuff. But I feel like they needed, as hard as it is to say, like I feel like it needed a little more. Thus far, a little more peril, a little more kind of like a little more to what is going on in the world. I feel like the cat needs to discover a bit more about what's going on and kind of develop as its own character, which is wild to say about a cat.
Yeah, the cat needs to discover its inner strength.
The cat needs to go on an emotional arc.
That's right.
Okay? That's what
eat pray cat. That's what we need. That's
pray
what
cat. It needs to befriend a mouse or something.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a lightness to the novelty of playing as the cat that kind of is reflected in how disposable it feels as an experience, if you know what I mean.
I don't, that when you say novelty, I actually kind of disagree with that because I think the greatest triumph of the game was kind of understanding that cat, like the capabilities of a cat really naturally fit into the world of video games and they stand on their own really well. And I think that was what was so clever of the developers to understand that and build their entire game around that. So I think when you say novelty, I think it's novel in the sense that it's unique.
Original.
And it's it's original, I mean, right?
Yeah.
But I think I don't know, but how that relates to a deeper gameplay experience, I agree there is a gap there, and you could have augmented that with more sophisticated puzzles or a different exploration model. I don't know, but I think you're right. I think it had a really nice narrative that I enjoyed. There he is. What's going on?
Cat appearance on screen. If you are listening at home, it is a cat with white. And it's got little brown spots. It opened its mouth. Looks like a nice young man or woman.
What's his or her name?
That's a lady. That's Miko.
Miko, nice.
No, what's her full name?
Mikolash. It's Mikolash, the Bloodborne character. Because like Mikolash, the Bloodborne character, the moment she sees anything, she runs away.
I see. But yeah, because I know Jake as well. You were saying there was just that little thing missing for you. Did you were you able to think about what, like, did you identify what that little missing thing that the game really needed for you?
I think it just needed a little bit more room for developing. I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more attachment to one of the few robots you stick around with.
Sure.
I think they could have really sold a little bit more emotional resonance there, as well as how things wrap up. I think it could have had a little bit more something to it and a couple of more minutes to let it breathe. That would have really done it for me. You know, an interesting thing I wanted to ask you guys. I saw a lot of people in my comment sections that said the game is not good or the game is lesser because you can't pick the cat's colors and give it a
100%.
name and choose.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
I think that is wild that they didn't have a character creator. Like that's,
my God.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that is patched in. Pretty
I mean,
soon.
you can play as Garfield in it now. Like,
Yeah.
someone's already
Oh,
modded
But you
it.
can play as
Incredible.
CJ.
Yeah.
You can play
Yeah.
as CJ, that creepy mod
Yeah.
that turns the cat into
Terrible.
CJ.
No.
There was
Oh
a
my
news story about
God.
it today where there's like a modder who's just like taking commissions to put people's characters and cats into the game. So like I
Yeah.
imagine someone at that studio is like, we need to just make this a thing and update the game,
Yeah.
please.
Here's the
Yeah.
deal. I respect the developer's vision. They wanted to tell a story about this cat. That's the cat. We can't
Mhm.
make our own. This is the cat. There are so many. If you made your own cat in the game, the cat would be dumb and wouldn't be able to talk to robots. This is the story of this
Peanut
cat.
would,
You know.
Peanut would be
You're
able
saying
to
about
talk
my
to
cat?
robots. What are you saying? Yeah.
I'm talking
My
about
cat
mine.
is
My cat
very
would not.
clever.
But it does seem like a bit of an own goal from a marketing perspective, like as makes sense creatively, because this is also a real cat that they based it on, like a real stray cat that the developers have and found and whatever, and that's cool. But at the same time, you would have sold a lot more of your game and made people a lot more happy if they could have pretended it was their cat because they could see it on screen. Like that's pretty crazy. So Stray 2, man, they're gonna do it 100%. They got to.
What would you guys like to see for another one? I would like to see more interactions with other cats.
Yeah.
I
They were very cute
the first game, it was very cool to be alone, but I would like to see a little bit of a cat story.
Here's what I'm saying: co-op, 2 cats.
Yeah, 2 cats. Yeah.
Guns? You think guns or no? No guns?
We're slowly getting close
That's
to
right.
the blink
Samurai
territory, and I don't
Gun
like
blades.
Samurai
Sorry.
pizza cats. That's what we need, right? We need that.
Jellicles.
it. Gun blades.
You know.
Yeah.
Survival horror game. With a
Yeah.
cat.
That works. That works.
It does. Actually.
Of the other games this week, Ralph, you've been playing Forza Hot Wheels.
Yo, has anyone else played Forza Hot Wheels?
Yo.
No.
Has anyone
I
else? Oh my
haven't.
god, you don't understand how good this is. It is so fun and joyful and beautiful and just like, oh god, I really love this. And I think that I can understand why there's lots of things you can kind of like nitpick about it. Like, oh, we've already experienced this with Horizon 3. It's like, yeah, that's true. Oh, it only adds a small number of cars. That's true. And they probably weren't as wild as they could have been in a lot of their implementations for tracks, right? A lot of it's just big, expansive trackway. There aren't really lots of crazy missions that really lean into what Hot Wheels could be if you went all in on a big, dedicated Hot Wheels game, leveraging all of their mechanics and track types and whatever. Having said that, what is there, I just think is so fantastic. And I think it's about 10 to 15 hours of truly beautiful racing with any car you like on massive orange tracks, suspended 50 kilometers above Mexico. You are literally racing through the clouds, upside down loop-to-loops, going into volcanoes. And it's just, oh man, I had no intention of playing any more than like an hour or 2 of this just to fuck around and be like, oh, that's cool, tick that box, I played it. But as I said, I'm in the second last, like there's different leagues, right? And I'm on the second last one now. I'm going to finish this game for sure. And the interesting thing about it as well, just from a game design perspective, is that my biggest problem with Forza Horizon 5 or Forza Horizon in general, why I don't love them, is they don't have that feeling of progression. They're not that kind of RPG thing, where because any car you get is just a pull of that thing and boom, you know, you might get like fucking F40 Ferrari or you might get a Datsun. Okay, it's all just chance. But this actually has a more graduated approach where you start with like the B-type cars and you move up and up and up as you beat activities and unlock things and whatever. So it does feel a little bit more like that, not RPG thing, that's not it, but it does give you that feeling of graduated progression that Forza has always denied us. And I love that. It's just made me so much more motivated to continue to play, to do all the challenges, to do it all. So yeah, man, I love it. I love it. And
how did you
yeah.
feel about the kind of educational part of it? Because the
Oh.
original one had the Volkswagen Beetle stuff, which was received pretty well, I think. But I've heard that the Hot Wheels version is a bit like an advert for Hot Wheels.
It is. It starts out really wholesome, and you're like, "This is the history of Hot Wheels," and you're like, "Oh, cool! I want to learn about that." And it tells you like the first race that you do. It's all this really interesting information about the creators and what they were aiming for. And then by the third or fourth race, you're like, and then they released this product line made by this guy that you've never heard of, and his friend, this guy, also made that thing, and then that was their most successful product line. Oh, can you believe how many amazing cars there are now? Like, it does get a bit much. I agree.
It turns out Hot Wheels was created by the Nazis, and you're like, oh no.
Is that the Volkswagen throwback? Is that what we're doing? Is that
Did they actually talk about that in the Volkswagen one?
I don't know. I was just vibing. I was just jamming with Jake on that one.
Just riffing.
But yeah, it does get a bit salesy, unfortunately. So yeah, but I think as well, what I took away from it is that we're kind of lucky to have this in many aspects, because AAA games, look, we have a dedicated Hot Wheels game for sure, okay? But Forza is a whole nother level of presentation and effort and simulation and customization. Comparing Forza Horizon to Hot Wheels Unleashed, it's chalk and cheese. It's that AA versus AAA comparison. And we're very lucky to have the incredible framework and baseline sort of foundation of Forza Horizon 5 applied to a Hot Wheels experience. There's no way this game gets made otherwise. There's no way we get a AAA Hot Wheels game. And we've got one here with Forza. And I just think, as I was playing it, like, I'm so glad they did this. I feel really lucky to have experienced this. I loved it so much. So yeah, probably a weird way to look at it, but I really did think about how unlikely it would be that we would get this by any other means.
It's on my list, definitely, as a Forza person.
To be real, you can play it for an hour or two, and you've seen most of it in inverted commas.
That will still make me happy.
But it's a fantastic hour or two, you know. And if you want to go the full 15 hours, cool. But it's such a great, joyful experience.
Is it included in Game Pass, or you got to buy that separately?
So you can buy it separately, but that will bolt on to a Game Pass subscription. So you don't need to buy the base game. You can just buy this expansion for, I think, $30, which is pricey, don't get me wrong, but it's also meaty, as in there are a good 15 hours of solid gameplay that if I was to spend $30 with it, I would not feel remotely ripped off by this product. No way.
I'm going to bounce around with you guys. Lucy and Tam, you guys have both played a game called Bear and Breakfast. Lucy, you were the one who first brought. I didn't even know what it was until you started talking about it. What's the elevator pitch?
You run a bed and breakfast, but you are a bear. And
accurate.
I mean, that's the pitch. It's basically
like a nice bear, or like
you are a very sweet bear. And you and your woodland friends are very sad because there are no humans around anymore, and the humans drop trash, and you like to rummage through the trash, and so you meet up with it's someone in like a shark costume.
It's
like a motorized shark.
Yeah, it's like a robot shark that wears sunglasses.
Yeah, who runs a shop called Porn Voyage. Like a pawn shop.
Right, I was going to say, wow.
Yeah.
What's this game rated?
And encourages you to start, to get a rundown shed and turn it into an Airbnb.
It encourages you. It tricks you into a multi-level marketing scheme.
It's Tom Nook's you.
It's Tom Nook, I was going to say.
It's like you will earn a marginal increase in your fund. It's like very open.
Look, that shark is a boss babe. Yeah. And you're just trying to gatekeep bed and breakfast. But no, basically it has a kind of element of the Stardew of the Animal Crossing. You go around, you explore the woods, you gather resources, you go take them to a workbench, and it has an element of The Sims in it. You kind of get to make little rooms and decorate them. It has a management side to it because you're getting guests in and you have to try and match their comfort levels and how nicely a place is decorated with what they want. They'll pay more if they like it. It has loads of little woodland creatures, there's like a little raccoon who ask you to do stuff. There's all these like mice. There's I'll let Tam speak about your core gang because they are also great. It's really well written. It's really funny in a way that I didn't think it would work, but it does.
It is like internet humor, kind of. It's got that like modern kind of online style of speaking to a lot of the characters, but it does it very naturally, and it does it in a very, it doesn't overuse it. It's not the dialogue isn't defined by it. It's like occasionally we'll drift into it and complement the personalities, as opposed to being like, we stand breakfast or whatever it might be. It's like, that kind of shit. It's none of that shit. It's just like it's sometimes you'll read a sentence and you'll be like, oh, I've heard people say this online. I get it. It's a fun joke. Yeah,
it's like it has like funny. It reminds me a little bit of sort of Simpsons humor. The main bear reminds me a little bit of Homer Simpson in that he's just very clueless, and so they'll be kind of explaining stuff to him, and he just goes, like there's a line that's very reminiscent to me, which is Homer Simpson smiling politely, where he's just like, I have no idea what you just said, that kind of thing. And so the humor in it really works. You do side quests for other people in the woods. They have their own storylines, but it's got a really nice loop, and it you can kind of leave your B&B in the care of other people while you go off and explore different places. And there's an element of the thing that I really love in games like Okami, which is where stuff looks like shit, you go in and clean it up, and then it looks great. And there's elements of that to it too.
Oh, we like that here. Definitely.
Yeah, that's the thing on this podcast.
I was gonna say we all like some power washing.
The cleanest video game podcast.
That's right.
But no, it's great, and it's out on PC. I think this week around the 28th, and it's coming to Switch at some point. It seems like a perfect Switch game, but I'm really enjoying it, and Tam's playing it too.
Yeah.
And I woke up this morning to a text, which was.
Well, the version that I currently have, which is, to be fair, a pre-release version, doesn't work on Steam Deck, which is devastating to me.
That is.
But the reason I think it will be fine, because the reason it doesn't work is a pre-release thing that you have to do to make it work on a PC, which is very easy to do, but it's trickier to do on a Steam Deck when you need to access. Oh, it's Peanut.
Now that we're not talking about.
Cat has appeared on screen.
Grump. The thing that I think that it should be okay on Steam Deck. Don't quote me on it if it turns out to be an absolute disaster, but it works. It's just there's something weird with the text that you can fix on a PC that you can't fix on a Steam Deck currently.
Like I said, pre-release version.
Pre-release version, yeah. But I think the thing worth emphasizing is like the characters are really, really charming in a lot of ways. There's a character that I really love called Will, who's just the most miserable pigeon like you've ever seen, and he looks like he's on a grift constantly. He's trying to scam everyone. He's trying to trick everyone, and like he's your like close friend, and like you also, I think he's your brother. You're like in a family.
There's something like a weird
like constructed family. Is it
voice acted or is it?
No, it's not voice acted. So you're a bear named Hank, and Hank is a really lovable character because you can actually like zoom in, and he has this really fluid animation where he walks, where he swings his arms like back and forth.
Oh man,
and
he's got
like a very squishy animation style, which is genuinely like so endearing to watch him like walk through these different areas. And like your brother and your sister are Will and Annie, I think it is. Annie's a fox, and Will is like a pigeon who's just like wearing this really low hat. And it's like this family unit, and your mum basically says, go out and get me some sticks that I need to do this thing. And you're like, oh shit, we get to leave our little area and go to this area across. And then while you're there, you somehow end up setting up a bed and breakfast, and you come back 3 days later and your mom's like, what the hell, where were you? Like really charming. But like all these little characters that you meet along the way, some of them you speak to just for like a couple of seconds, but they make a pretty good impression on you, where you're like, I want to go back. I kept trying to speak to people over and over again because I was like, I want to hear what else you might have to say, because it's kind of charming. So it's that Stardew thing where you have a core loop of doing chores, but those loops, the way they design them, they have a quest system as well. There is a golden path through the game, and it tells you if you just do these quests, you'll finish the game. But you can also like speak to a bunch of people, and the way they construct the quests I find really fascinating is they always try to push you to do a quest that kind of like will take you past another character, intersect with another character, and inevitably you'll want to speak to them. And sometimes they'll just be like, hey, and say something funny. Other times they'll be like, hey, can you do this for me? And then that will like net you some extra items or some extra thing that will allow you to grow or take you to another character that you want to talk to. And it's got this, like Lucy said, super satisfying loop that is just really, really engrossing to play. It feels like I remember how Stardew was when it first came out, where you're like, oh, I think I'm going to be obsessed by this. And more importantly, it doesn't have that kind of, you know how Animal Crossing quickly goes from being charming and fun into this is work? Like it doesn't have that. Where I was like, I woke up early to play it today because I was like, I want to do it again. Whereas if I did that with Animal Crossing, there would be something that would push me away where it's like, you need to collect 30 cherries or something like that. You need to shake all these trees or, you know, it's just like, we've got nothing for you to do right now.
The collection is very manageable.
Yeah.
Right. Is there any fail state or anything that's like stress inducing?
No stress inducing, but a really fun thing that I really love about it is that all of your guests are actually scared of you because you're a bear.
Sure.
And so there are some characters you talk to who can understand you, and then there are some characters who can't. And so what you do is like there are dialogue options, just like 2, just to say, hey, did you manage to do this task? Yes, I did, and I was great. Or yeah, I did, and it was fine. But the way you react will be, you roar like a bear confidently.
Yeah.
And your little, because it does the visual novel thing where your sprite changes. And so there are different ones where it's like, yeah. Or the one my favorite is the anime embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
There's like a bit where a character's like, oh my God, it's a bear. And then you can like click something which is like, hi, I'm a bear, or like, don't worry, and you click it and it says like the text is, you make non-threatening bear noises. Like very charming because of it. I'm like only like 3 or 4 hours in and I'm already like, just play 3 hours. It'll make you feel all warm and fuzzy and it's good.
It sounds so nice because I'd seen the trailer recently and I was like, wow, that looks really lovely. Great art style. Like I'm totally interested in this, but just hearing everything you've said about how it's written, that's what really sells me on it because it's just that kind of because I was playing something recently called Spirit Tea. Did you guys check this out during the Steam Fest? It's basically like Spirited Away meets Stardew Valley. So you run a bathhouse full of spirits. And
I think I know that game. I think we might have had it on one of our showcases.
Yeah. Really lovely, fantastic writing, just a great vibe. And especially as well what you said about not being work, that part, I think, because I always bounce off those sorts of games because I'm like, oh, now I'm in the grind. But if it's more narrative led than it is resource collection led, that would work for me.
It actually reminds me a bit of Spiritfarer, which had that kind of same kind of and energy to it, which is like lighter and a little more like aware and kind of youthful to a degree, if you know what I mean. It feels good to play. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, cool.
Tam, the other thing you played is Resident Evil 3, the remake. So I'd love to hear your perspective on this one.
Yeah, so I not played Resident Evil. I loved Resident Evil, the franchise, obviously. And that second remake, I think, is genuinely one of the best games ever made. Not just like a good remake. I think it's just like one of the best games ever made. And I was like, I wasn't. And originally, in the old school days, I really loved 3. I know a lot of people don't like 3, but I really, really was fascinated with the way the Nemesis worked. And I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. Like once because they did, Mr. X, and I was like, oh, this is just a Nemesis. And when I played the second game, the remake, I was like, I cannot wait for them to do their third game because they're going to put all this stuff into that game and it's going to make the Nemesis amazing. And then it came out and I obviously copy edited a bunch of reviews and that kind of stuff. And it was like getting okay-ish reviews, but not the enthusiasm I expected from the follow-up to Resident Evil 2 remake. And then I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. I'll stream it because it's a fairly short game. And not a great game, I think. It starts really strong, I think. It starts super, super strong. Oh, the one thing I'll say from the outset is like unnecessarily hot, Jill Valentine. Like just
I know, right? For real.
Unnecessary.
I don't think I've ever had that kind of response to a video game character before. I'm just like,
it's borderline creepy because it's not like borderline creepy where it's like she's got massive tits and a massive ass.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of attention paid to how good this lady looks.
Right, that's what you mean.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's like every like framing of her, like she turns to look at the camera, and you're like,
yes.
that's like a perfume model's like sequence. Like her hair will flick in the perfect places.
Yep.
Like when she's like on the ground, like she doesn't have a lot of blood on her. She's just got like just a decent amount of blood and some like specks of dust on her face, and you're like, she looks impeccable in every scene. It's unbelievable. And the lighting is like just a gift to her in every single moment. But like everything, like it starts strong. You start off in the kind of like apartment, and it's like quite an explosive start where you're immediately just ambushed by the nemesis, and you're like, okay, it's on with this
Fucking
dude
so
who's gonna
awesome.
fight. It's so cool.
It's so
And then
great.
from there, it just becomes like the second encounter with Nemesis. I stopped for a second. There's a dodge mechanic where you just hit the button and she does this dodge, which is not a great dodge, but I basically downloaded all of his animations and learned how to dodge him in the second time I fought him, and he became completely pointless. Like every time he'd show up, I'd just stand in one spot and just dodge for about 20, like not 20, it's like 20 seconds, and then the chat would be like, this is not fair on Nemesis, and then I would like I'd move on. But he just became this nuisance that would appear in scripted moments. And I think the most egregious, Carlos is in it. I don't know how he got into any sort of military outfit with hair covering his eyes, which is insane. He's the consummate himbo. Like he appears, he's got guns, he's hot. He immediately starts being a bit of a creep and starts like hitting on Jill, and Jill's just like, piss off, I'm not interested in this. But of course they grow close. The thing that really struck me was it's a thin game. There's not a lot going on in that game.
Yes,
and the problem with thin games and I talked about this yesterday as I was finishing it, I have like an acute awareness for when a design of a game switches to pad it out and waste your time. And this game, halfway through, that you can feel like you can just imagine someone walked in and went, this is too short, we need to slow them down. And like a switch is flipped, and suddenly like the nemesis starts behaving really weirdly. The hitboxes are suddenly very strange, where like, and then it's doing things where it's putting you in areas that are just confusing mazes, and it wants to like, and then you're like, oh, you've just put 3 hunters in this room and they all have 1-hit kills, and you want me to fight a wave of zombies in a game where ammo conservation is kind of paramount to what you're doing. And it kind of kills the tension. It switches the kind of pace of the game in a really weird way. You're kind of suddenly like, the Resident Evil combat and the control works really well in 2, because it's this fine art of like the survival horror part of it, and like you need to, in moments of heated combat, you can take a few shots and then back away. Whereas this game takes those same mechanics and is like, no, you're playing a shooter now. And it kind of falls apart for me at that. Like, I'm trying to shoot and like zombies are just eating clips of bullets and just standing back up. And at one point they introduce enemies that just never die. They just keep coming back up, and you're like, you are working so hard to stop me from getting to the credits of this game. And I just found like they reused the Nemesis's boss like loops, like the thing where it does the running around the edges of the arena like 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, okay. And by the time it was done, I had kind of like soured on it quite badly, where I was like, this is the thing that baffles me is they swapped the Mr. X tyrant thing and Nemesis back and forth, whereas like they made the Nemesis in the 3 remake behave like Tyrant Mr. X behaved in 2, and then they made Tyrant Mr. X behave like Nemesis. And it's just like, why did you do that?
Because I remember calling out that same thing in my review, and I was like, oh, back in the day, you never knew when the Nemesis would pop up. It felt like this omnipresent threat. And the comment section was like, nah, bro, you always knew. You're totally misremembering this. You always knew. It was always scripted. And I was like, well, okay, maybe my dumb brain back then didn't realize it, but I felt like it was always this threat. And I think the job of the remake would have been to deliver on that idea, right? Because that's sort of what happened with Mr. X in number 2. He really did just pop up anytime he felt like it when you're walking around in that second playthrough, right? Or the second half, right? So yeah, to see the way they handled it just felt like such a wasted opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, you can correct us if we're wrong, but like in the original, it was definitely scripted where he would appear in the same spots over and over again, but like you never expected it. And I think what would happen was it didn't feel on rails, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
like
that's
with
right.
this, he busts through a wall and then he's there and you run in a direction, or you run past him and you keep on. I remember distinctly in the original where there's a room where you walk into it and it's basically a split path that like you run along the path and then he's waiting at the end, and then you've got like this small area where you can try and get past him, or you can run down the other path, and it felt like almost like a contained area where you're like, I gotta try and get around this guy and like maneuver my way through it. And like I felt like I had degree of control over where I could go. Whereas in this, most scenarios, I didn't feel like I had a degree of control where I can go. It was always just push forward, and that was it.
The ferocity of him and like the unrelenting feeling is lost much quicker in the remake, where it doesn't feel as like, oh shit, he busts through another wall and he's running towards you. Yeah. In this, there was more opportunities where he would just bust through a wall and then he's like, it's time to fight. And it's like, okay.
The thing that
like,
I remember most about the Nemesis is not the way he looks, the rocket launcher, or the fact that he says stars. It's his like stomping footsteps.
Yeah.
In the original, like you'd come into a room and then you'd hear like the da 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 da, and then you'd like hear him like stomping towards you, and like you'd have this moment where it was like a humanoid figure is coming towards you. Whereas this, you go from like a humanoid figure to like weird like wall of a monster very quickly. So it's like you're not really having it's not like a game of chicken with him anymore. It's just like you're here now. You're just force of nature. I just need to get past.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of felt, and I think, I don't know, I got a lot of flack for this, but I kind of felt like this should have been a DLC for Resident Evil 2 Remake. I don't know if that's too harsh a call. Do you think that's too harsh a call?
I don't. I think the tricky thing is, I believe it was developed concurrently to Resident Evil 2 Remake. I'm pretty sure that's right, and that kind of explains why they're so different in like scale and scope. Like there was clearly an A-team B-team situation here going on. I definitely feel like it's very cheeky of them to. They definitely use the goodwill around Resident Evil 2 Remake to put this game out and charge full price for it and get
I agree with that. I agree with that.
It's almost like they were aware of how it was then, because how it was then, like I thought it was cool, but I always considered it like the weird one, where it almost felt like it was like the experimental weird spin-off one, where it's like, oh, you have like ammo percentage counter and assault rifles, and you just focus on this one bad guy, and even the box art is like weird and different. So it's almost like they just treated it the same way, where it's like, this is the weird one, we'll just put it out. It's not as big of a deal.
I wish that it could have been a better game, just so it kind of fit in with this kind of Resident Evil renaissance that they're having, where they're putting out bangers. Like they're putting out good games, especially in the mainline series. But this is going to be remembered as the weird dip, unless Resident Evil 4 remake is somehow worse, which God, I hope not.
Why would you put that energy out there?
Like even
that
I think that game is too big for them to screw it up. I feel like there's no scenario where they put a stinker out and are okay with it.
Sure.
In other news, Ralph, I would like to know what the deal is with Saints Row. You put out a preview video. You got your hands on that. And your video was titled something like Saints Row is okay, I guess, maybe, sure.
It's the question mark that makes it. Did you get any of you guys play this hands-on session? Anyone else do it?
No, we sent someone to play it for us.
Yeah, right. What did the person that you sent, what did they think? How are they feeling?
We've had two previews of it. First preview was not exactly glowing. It felt quite I think the first preview was quite focused on characters and story. And it felt like Jordan, who saw it, said it felt very surface level observation, almost stereotypical of the people that they were trying to represent. The second preview is the latest one that you played, was gameplay focused, and Phil Hornshaw played it and said that it felt like the kind of janky in a good way. You know, that classical kind of like open world messiness to it that he could find some joy in playing it.
Sure.
But it does feel a bit dated.
Oh yeah. No, that was very much my takeaway as well. Which I wasn't really expecting that, in the sense that I saw the trailers, I saw what the limited gameplay they'd released before, and I'm like, okay, this looks pretty cool. Like this is the way that they framed this action and the way this is all clicking together. I was like, yeah, I think this could be kind of interesting. But yeah, 4 hours with it. It is pretty basic, I think, is the best way to put it. I was really looking for, hey, how might you advance in some way this urban open world genre? And I wasn't really able to find anything like that. It really does feel like the same kind of, you're in a car chase, get on the roof of the car and shoot stuff, or shoot out the window, and you've got a gun and there's lots of people who have just arrived and they've gotten out of their cars and they're standing there shooting with you with something. You should shoot back at them. Okay, you've killed 20 of those guys now. You've completed the mission. Look, obviously there's going to be more stuff available later. I'm sure it's going to get more diverse and more interesting than that. But the fundamentals of all of it weren't particularly interesting. Like combat was just like the same awkward third person shooting combat. The control aim was so bad, by the way. I wasn't the only one that thought so. Oh man,
Phil said the same.
Oh, awful. And like I don't usually play on controller, but I can do it fine, whatever. But this was so bad that I spoke to my editor who was playing it with me, and I'm like, dude, what do you think about this? He's like, it's terrible, 100%. Like it's the worst. So that's not good. There's also like this camera thing, which I'm surprised no one else called out. But when you're driving, your camera is not fixed to the back of your car. It's actually completely free camera. So when you're driving, you constantly need, yeah, I know. So you constantly need to move the camera with your, like the right stick. So if you just turn left, the camera will continue to look straight ahead. So then the car is just kind of like turns like this and you can't see where you're going, right? So, and I was like, am I crazy? So I went back and like played GTA and Watch Dogs and whatever. And they have cameras that sit on the back of your car. They follow you, whatever. And so I was kind of just like, well, what's going on with this development? Like it's 2022. We should have this sort of stuff in here, you know?
And you clarified with them, right? You did say
and
that
I also
video.
followed up with them. I spoke to the developer, the publisher, and they forwarded my request on to the team, the development team, and the development team said, yeah, there are none of those options available. So look, I feel like I also feel like this game's getting really shat on, and I think I look at the response to my video and it kind of bums me out because I wanted to really go into it and be like, look, I don't think this is particularly interesting. I don't really like this much, but nor do I think that this developer is being lazy or trying to sell you a dud or like whatever. Like they're just making a fun, silly open world game, and that's fine, right? But the response that I got to that, and I think that was the tone that I struck in the video as well. I wasn't shitting on the game, but the comment section was really like, yeah, this fucking sucks. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, I don't really think it's the worst thing you've ever seen. I think it's just a pretty averagey open world game. I would have liked it to evolve a bit more, but I don't think it really deserves that much ire, and it's definitely getting a lot of ire out there. So yeah.
Yeah, from the beginning, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's to do with like the character. People think like the characters and the direction they've gone with it and the cast and the writing or whatever. I don't particularly like the jokes in this game. I don't think that is particular. I don't think it's funny. But yeah, people.
What do you think is the defining feature or aspect of Saints Row as a franchise?
I mean, I'm not really.
The color purple.
I mean,
the thing that I've always struggled with. Like,
Sure.
I've not been a huge Saints Row 3 was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've truly always struggled with trying to figure out what defines Saints Row and what makes it a good game. And because as far as I've always seen it, its success in a large part has been it's been a good alternative to GTA. Just by virtue of it existing and being a decent game on the scale of something like the GTA, it's kind of built up a fan base. And I wonder if now that, you know, that franchise has like stepped away for a while and GTA has kind of like transcended to a different degree, it's kind of really struggling to find its identity because it never truly defined one. It had a lot of different aspects to it, right? It was like one time it was like boots on the ground, gun culture, and by the end of it, it's like you're the president and a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, what is your identity? What is your? There's no cohesive identity to it.
Yeah.
That's where I thought it
it's
finally got good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, when you were the president.
it's almost like puzzling that, and maybe this is the clash that some people are hitting, where they see this new one and it has none of that like zaniness. Where I once they started to figure it out with 3, I was like, this isn't really a GTA clone. This is just like an escalating, zany type of fun game where it's a little crass, it's a little gross, but it's just like right there where they pull a lot of it off. But now it seems like it's like they stripped it back to Saints Row 2, where it's very just shooty.
It's interesting that you say that, because I think the narrative that I certainly saw out there was that people are really glad that it's going back to that Saints Row 1 or Saints Row 2 era.
I've seen people, and I'm like, where were you? Where the fuck were you? It's
Yeah.
not like
But I think there's lots of different views on when that series was at its peak. But I think one of the biggest things that people liked about this reboot was getting back to that Saints Row 2 vibe. But I do think that in so doing, they've got this cast of characters that I don't really think most people who are interested in this franchise are going to be really keen on these characters. Like, they're just, I don't know, again, the humor that they're putting out there, they're like, oh, they've got to repay their college loans. And I don't know, I struggle with that side of it. I wasn't able to connect with their motivations. Not
but
that
it's
you really need to
gangs.
have,
Like,
say again,
you're
sorry?
still forming a gang, but it's like
still forming a
nerd
gang, sure.
nerd gang.
So the based
Yeah,
on
nerd
what nerd, yeah, but I that's the one part of it that I'm actually interested in, because
Okay.
I don't know how much you were exposed to it, but they were like, we are making a commentary on the nature of capitalism, that this is kind of like the group of people who are so like buried in debt and that kind of stuff that their only resort that they see is crime. And
Wow.
so like they start off with petty crime. I'm like, okay, let's see how you approach this. That's the one thing where I'm like, I'm willing to play it just to see how you handle this. Do I have faith that they will handle it really well? I don't think so. But,
Yeah,
you know, at least it's trying something.
I mean, the interrogation of the concept of student loan debt is an interesting concept to pursue, but should it be done by, there's this character who refuses to put a shirt on, you know, and he's like, I don't know, that it just, I get where they're going with that, but and I think there probably would have been a way to land that joke and those themes simultaneously, but the 4 hours I spent with it, that wasn't clicking together for me. It just wasn't vibing. So look, it's going to be a game that comes out. You're going to be able to play it co-op. You're going to be able to
It's going to be a game. It'll be something that exists.
That's what all my comment section was, just like, Saints Row is certainly going to be a game that exists, you know. So look, it is a thing that's coming. I think it's going to be perfectly fine. I very much categorize it as like Far Cry 5 or whatever. Where it's like, you can play this and you're going to have fun with it. Are you going to remember it? Not really, but that's okay. Not every game needs to be fantastic and memorable and life-changing. This is going to be a fun game you play co-op with your friends. Am I looking forward to it? Not particularly. It's just a thing. It's not really where my preference lies, but hey, I'll check it out for the purposes of a review, because I mean, that's what I do. I review video games. That's my job, you know. So.
I'm curious to see how it goes. Thank you for sharing. That's out soon. That's out towards the end of August.
Next month.
Yep. So check back in for that. Folks, I think that about wraps it up for us.
Well, hang on. I want to hear, because we haven't heard about As Dusk Falls. We haven't talked about that yet, have we?
Oh, yeah.
And that was one that I know you played this week, because I watched your video on it, actually. So
thank you.
I would love to hear you talk up Dusk Falls, because you really liked it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's one where I don't know how, I play a lot of games. I don't know how much it's going to stick with me throughout the year, because it's probably like the least playable of any of these types of story based choose your own angle of the story adventure type thing. But I thought As Dusk Falls told a pretty cool little story. It's like, because they weren't focused on gameplay, they were able to really hash out a story with some interesting characters, and just like a story that isn't really told in video games that often. It felt very much like an FX television show or like a Breaking Bad. Like, it would have a couple of weird unconventional things to it, and I really like that. The voice acting wasn't always there, and that was an issue, but the art and presentation actually worked for me. You get used to it really quickly. I understand a lot of people immediately turned off by it. I was. When I saw the trailer, I was like, wait, what? These Max Payne graphic novel, comic book looking ass panel people. What is going on here? But I think it did a good job of really just kind of rounding out every scene. Like, just seeing a person's look of shock, you understand the severity of a scene. Like, you just kind of understand what's going on. And it just was this very like American ass, like character focused thing that dealt with jumping time periods and just a thing that branches out from one small bad decision, essentially a crime, a robbery, and then how that affects multiple people. going forward for years. Was just kind of cool. And it wasn't super long. It's like 6.5 hours. And I liked experiencing it. I think there's conversation to be had, like whether or not it stuck the landing on the ending. But I definitely like the ride more than I thought. Now it's a co-op game though. Like you can join up with a friend with the app if you want, or a controller, and up to 7 people can play and vote on the decisions. But it is not like a woohoo, haha, hollering type game. It's like you're watching like one of the most heavy episodes of Breaking Bad. You're not going to be wanting to yell at the screen with your friends, really.
Do you think you could play it? Is it worth playing solo? Like, because I know it's a co-op experience. I was wondering.
I played it predominantly solo. Okay. Yeah, definitely. It's even fun to play solo, but you have someone else just kicking it with you in the room, because the game does do a good job at the very least. While it's very serious stuff, it does do a good job of kind of getting a little bit of a rise out of you. Where there were a couple of times where it presented 2 options with me, like in a character argument, and it presents 2 options, and I'm like, no, you know what? No, I'm picking this one.
Sure.
There's like a really tense couple, like a husband and wife argument that like you really like get invested in it, and you're either going to feel one way or the other. And like I watched a Twitch streamer play the game, and they were thinking a totally different way from me, and actually like sounded fairly valid. But it was like you could actually kind of get a little amped up about some of these decisions, and I think that's just a testament to the writing.
Nice. I'm really interested in those. I love that, like Fargo kind of like American life. Yes. Shit goes down. Shit goes. I don't know. Even like I think there's some of that in Tarantino's films at times, where things can kind of that Americana meets something bad happens at a certain place and time, and here's what happens after that. I really dig that setting and theme and ideas. So I'm actually kind of interested to check this one out, because as I said before, I'd heard pretty mixed things in the preview cycle, but post that, everyone's pretty positive on it. Everyone seems to have really enjoyed it. So
it wasn't on my radar really, but now I think I'm going to check it out. So thank you, Jake.
Eager to play it.
Especially too, if it's something you want to just pick through very slowly, like it is divided up. And because I don't want to say like it's barely a game, but like because it's so simple, play-wise, it's one of those games where you can jump back into after a couple of weeks and you don't go, wait, what's my inventory? Wait, how do I, it's just like you remember like, okay, I kind of remember where I am on the story. Let's keep going. So it's a good one to kind of play at.
In total, it's like 6 hours, right? 6 or 7 hours.
6.5, 7. Yeah. I've seen people beat it in like 7. For me, it was 6.5.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Nice.
That is As Dusk Falls. But ultimately, I think that's the end of this podcast now. Ralph, thanks for saving me and getting me to talk about that.
Yeah, man. I
wasn't sure if you guys would find it interesting.
But no, man, I loved your video on it, so I was keen to hear more. Speaking
of videos, Tam, dude, thank you for joining us.
Of course,
it's always so good to have you. And I'd like to know where people can find you and what you're cooking up.
You can find me pretty much everywhere. TamorH on Twitter. Twitch.tv, TamorH, same there. And then I'm working on stuff at GameSpot. We do the podcast there, Lucy and I, and various others. We're also on Giant Bomb, Voicemail Dump Truck, usually the Bombcast. A couple of quick looks there. That's pretty much it.
Ralph, what about you, man?
I don't know, man. I'm taking a bit of time, just chilling out in August, I think, because there's not a huge amount coming out. I'm looking forward to that Rollerdrome game. I think it'll be nice. Obviously, there's Saints Row. Is there something else I'm missing? I mean, I thought about trying to do a video for Hotwheels, but what am I going to say? I'm like, it's a really cool, fun Hot Wheels expansion. You should totally buy it. And they'll be like, no, I don't want to buy that because it's an expansion. I'm like, whatever, man, you're missing out. So I don't know. That's it, really. As I said, August is very chilled. Oh, Xenoblade. I'm going to try and get into that. I tried desperately to get a review copy from Nintendo. You do not understand the lengths I went to try and get a review copy from Nintendo.
Oh, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to say, if anyone understands, it'll be Tam.
And it's a long one.
They were still not down for that. So, I'll just play it now.
Add Bear and Breakfast to your list. And also, Live Alive is pretty good.
Damn.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where I have to be ruthless. I'm like, well, I'm gonna if I'm gonna make time for one JRPG in the next little while, what's it gonna be? It's definitely gonna be Xenoblade, because it's like 100 hours. I've heard. I've heard some people say 150 hours.
Yeah,
which is I'm guessing if you do every single side quest. But I'm hearing it's at least I'm hearing it's at least 70, probably 100, up to 150. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah,
So-
we're sticking to strictly first impressions on Game Ranks because we didn't get access to it. So we're just going to crush as many hours as we can and just be like, here's kind of what it is.
After playing 7% of the game, which is 30 hours, you know.
I believe editor Jake Decker, who reviewed it for us, did it in 100, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's a serious commitment. So
Yeah.
Lucy, where can the folks find you?
I'm everywhere at Lucy James Games, Twitch, Twitter, and similar to Tam. I'm on Giant Bomb and GameSpot. We're on Voicemail Dump Truck this week. We did the Stray quick look as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to watch us talk more about Cat Game, head over to Giant Bomb.
We should also mention questions. Sorry. Oh, you do.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say,
questions are key. Yeah. What the hell is that email? Damn.
Well, no, because because basically we were going to try and do questions this week, but we want to start doing them when Jirard's here, but unfortunately he couldn't make it today. So we're going to pause the kicking off of the questions block until he's back because we want to do some maybe more personal focused questions. But that email address is contact@friendspersecond.com. And if you, whatever, man, we really liked getting those personal questions. It's like, what anime do you like?
They're really fun. Like,
what's your shoe size, and can you show us your feet, and why? If not, why not? Like those are really cool.
Money.
That's right.
Yeah.
It comes later in the podcast life cycle. But no, it was really cool. We've started going through all of those, and we do plan to tick them all off. So please keep it coming.
Yeah, definitely do that. Send us what you got. I'm Jake Baldino. You can find me on the internet as well. Thank you guys for listening, watching, choosing. You have a lot of choices, so thanks for picking us. We very much appreciate it. Hope you have a good time up until next time we see you, which will be fortnightly, every other week. I'm Jake Baldino. This is the Friends Per Second. Tie your shoes, go to bed.